We do have a meeting on our hand this evening, and we have a pretty little extensive public session, as well as a hearing, and so I want to get the ball rolling accordingly. Jesse,
we are all
look at that.
Good to go.
Perfect. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 2022 meeting of Manhattan Community Board 4. My name is Jeffrey LeFrancois. I'm chair of the board, and it's an honor to be calling the meeting to order this evening. We are still on the squares, though please note that the executive order is only through almost the end of December. So to continue to stay tuned for messaging from Jesse and the board staff as it relates to how we're going to proceed going forward as exec, and others confer on the issue. And of course, we look to the borough president for continued guidance on this. Tonight's meeting is being held via Zoom and is being streamed live to our YouTube channel, and will be made publicly accessible as soon as the meeting is over. As I mentioned, we have a hearing tonight. We were supposed to have a presentation from the Manhattan District Attorney, but unfortunately, he's requested a reschedule, and so we'll be having him visit us at the top of the year in 2023 to hear from DA Bragg. We do have a public hearing this evening, and as I said, a pretty extensive public session. If you did not sign up through our website this evening to speak in advance, you will have until 6:45 to raise your hand. So a lot of folks I see on the list did sign up in advance. I just want to emphasize that if you did not sign up in advance and would like to speak, please raise your hand by 6:45 so you can be added to the list. The agenda for tonight's meeting can be found on the board's website, MCB4.nyc. I do want to take, and I just saw a whole bunch of hands going up, and so just on the process point there, Jessica Chait, our first vice chair, will be running the public session. There's a lot of folks that have come to speak on the same topic, of which is not on the full board agenda this evening. So she's going to lay out sort of process and procedure for that. We have a couple of other, I'm sorry, my computer's doing its changeover from light to dark right now, and everything's slowed down. Okay, so with that, I'm actually gonna, we're not having the hearing because the DA can't join us, so we're gonna jump right into the public hearing, which is regarding a land use application for 260 11th Avenue. It's for a zoning text amendment to allow for an enlargement of the building there. This was under the purview of the Chelsea Land Use Committee. So I'm going to pass that over to Jessica and Carrie to introduce the item and to see if we had any speakers on it.
Great, thank you, Jeffrey. Good evening. As mentioned, this is a public hearing for the land use application for 260 11th Avenue for a zoning text amendment. We had a presentation on this at the Chelsea Land Use meeting in, geez, what month are we in November? And had a presentation. We've written a letter. It's in the Dropbox. We'll be voting on it later this evening, but wanted a chance to hear from the public on this topic. I know we have a lot of hands raised, and I believe many of you have signed up for the public session, and we have you on, just switching gears, we have you on that list. But if anyone has specifically signed up and wants to speak on this topic from the public, now is your chance. So I'm gonna watch the attendees list, and I would say take your hand down, either put your hand up now or take your hand down and put it back up if you want to speak specifically on the topic of the land use application for 260 11th Avenue, not for the public session.
Jessica, I'm just going to make this easy. I'm going to lower everybody's hand.
Oh, great.
If anybody wants their hand up for the hearing, they can put it back, and then everybody can put their hands right back up for the public session if they need to.
And again, if you have signed up, we have you on the list, so you don't need to do that.
Noting that the majority of hands that were up are already on our list.
Yes.
So if anybody would like to speak on the hearing for the land use application, you can raise your hand now.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we can close the public hearing. Jeffrey, back to you.
Thank you, Jessica. But we're going to play ping pong, and I'm going to send it back to you, Madam First Vice Chair, for our public session. So as is our custom, folks, members of the public are allowed to sign up in advance to speak on this. As Jessica mentioned, she's going to lay out some ground rules, and I'm passing it over to her now. Jessica?
Great, thank you. So typically for our public session, we allow people the opportunity 2 minutes to speak on a topic. We have, as Jeffrey mentioned, a very significant number of people who have signed up in advance, primarily, or not only, but primarily on one topic, which is West 22nd Street. So we are going to do all other comments first. You're going to have 2 minutes to speak, and then we're going to get to West 22nd Street as the last item. And we're going to ask everyone to keep their remarks to 1 minute. We'll have a timer that I'll be managing here. And of course, you can, just not use all of your minutes, say ditto, and acknowledge that your peers or community members have reflected your remarks. So with that, Jesse, if we can start by bringing over Alexander on and Bobby Van Galados.
I have Bobby.
Great. And I don't see Alexander. So if we want to go to Deborah Rame. Excuse me, I think it's Raymer, but on the list it was Rame.
Deborah's coming over now as well.
And then next one, while we get started with Bobby, will be Evelyn Santiago. So Bobby, if you're with us, you can come off mute, and I'm going to start your timer at 2 minutes now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bobby Vangelatos. I'm the center manager at the Chelsea Recreation Center. I just wanted to speak this evening about a few events we have this month for the public, which are completely free. Next Friday, December 16th, from 5 to 7 p.m., we're going to have our winter paint night. Members can come and join in on a painting class that's going to be led by one of our recreation instructors. The next day, Saturday, December 17th, from 8 to 4 p.m., we're having an all-day goal ball tournament. Goal ball, for anyone not familiar with it, it's a sport for the visually impaired, where they use a ball with bells. Think of it as a soccer, but they use the bells to hear it. So if anyone's interested in any of these two events, they can call the Recreation Center and we can register them or give them more information. And lastly, our junior Knicks clinics, basketball instructional clinics, are ongoing every Tuesdays and Thursdays for ages 5 to 10. And that's going to be from 4 to 6 p.m. And Saturdays from 5 to 6 p.m. is for ages 11 to 14. Any other questions, they can call the Recreation Center and we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you for coming. We'll go to Deborah Rame, and following that will be Evelyn Santiago, and then Jane Darcy. Deborah, are you with us?
I'll try to get her back. I'll try to get her over here. Deborah, you have to accept when I bring you over from attendees. There we go. Thank you. I don't have Evelyn Santiago, and the last name you mentioned I don't have either, I don't believe.
Jane Darcy.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll go to Caitlin Campbell.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Deborah. Yes, we can hear you. And
Okay,
your 2
sorry.
minutes. That's okay. Your 2 minutes will start now. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Deborah Raymer, and I live in Penn South, above the Penn South Dog Park. I want to say I don't hate dogs or the dog park. I've had a dog from the day I was born. I thought my first dog was my mother, and my first words were to her. I do hate being awakened every morning, unless it's raining, around 8 o'clock in the morning. I work overnights, and I need to sleep late. The lack of sleep has affected my nerves and my health, and sleep deprivation is a form of torture. I went door to door and collected over 100 signatures of Penn South residents who are directly and adversely affected by the dog park as well as all the nuns who live in the adjoining convent. We all want the dog park to close now that the nearby Chelsea Waterside Dog Park and Madison Square Dog Parks, both 3 blocks in each direction from us, are reopened. We are a naturally occurring retirement community, and a lot of our elderly residents don't know who to complain to or how, but they were grateful to sign my petition to close the dog park. It is disturbing to all of us at different times of the different periods of the 12 hours it is open every day. The location between 2 low-rise buildings, one of which is the convent, amplifies the barking noise. The dog park supporters also have a petition with more supporters because they have a way to get all the supporters. But are they verifiable? Do these people even live in the neighborhood? Many people have several emails. The dog park was sold to us as temporary and a trial. Well, the trial is not working. The dog supporters claim that they need the park for their sense of community and for their dog's well-being. Yet this doesn't seem to apply if it's cold or rainy, because then they don't need the park anymore and they don't come. Finally, the Penn South Dog Park is not necessary. It's time to close it. People's rights to the peaceful possession of their apartments is more important than a more convenient dog park. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. It looks like, Jesse, we have, I don't see Evelyn, but do you have Jane now?
I have Jane in attendees. She declined. I'll ask her one more time and then.
Okay, and then we have.
She's joining now. She's joining now.
Great. And seeing as, I apologize, I didn't appreciate that we have several people speaking on the dog run this evening. So if you can keep your remarks to the extent they are consistent with Deborah's brief, we would appreciate it. And after Jane, we can go to Ludmila.
Can you say that name again?
Sorry, Ludmila Sosa. I believe her hand is up in attendees and she had signed up in advance. Jane, do we have you?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. Your 2 minutes start now.
Okay, thank you. I'm a resident of Penn South, and I requested to speak tonight because I'm hoping it will help you understand how stressful and anxiety-producing the barking from the dog park is. Over the course of a day, the cumulative amount of barking is so great that it causes stress and anxiety. Multiply this by days, weeks, and months, and the stress and anxiety grow more intense. It is truly becoming a source of constant negative health effects. I have no respite from the stress of barking dogs during the daytime. I cannot sleep in late if needed or if I just want to, nor can I use my balcony anymore because of the noise. I have lost the peaceful use of my apartment and my balcony. I would also like to point out that the noise from the dog park carries through the courtyard and bounces off the brick to increase the sound level. So what you may hear at the immediate source of the noise could be different from the way it sounds as it travels. Additionally, while this should be obvious, I feel the need to say that dogs bark. They bark for many reasons, and there is no amount of education or pleading with dog park users or signs saying the dog park is under review. So until the dog park is permanent, that will change the eventual outcome that dogs bark. Lastly, I'd like to say that there are so many ways that our community can connect to each other, especially at Penn South. We have many parks, multi-use parks, children's parks, open spaces, and we also have clubs and organizations that we can join. But I only have one home and one apartment. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Jane. We'll go to Ludmila and then Rita Mullaney.
Hello?
Yes, hi, Ludmila. Yes,
Yes, hi.
your 2 minutes will start now.
Okay. My name is Ludmila Sosa. I live in Penn South, and I want to talk about dog park located on West 25th Street. All the windows and balcony of my apartment face 25th Street. Since the park was created, my family and my neighbors have been living in hell. To live 12 hours a day with constant barking is a mental nightmare. This park is located in the narrow alley between 2 buildings. That's why barking sounds very loud. because it echoes and become much louder. Also, the owners do not control the barking of the dogs to the point where it's nonstop. All of this affecting our life to the worst. It's hard to work, to study, to read. It's hard to enjoy to be at home. Barking is the first sound that I hear every morning. I never thought in my life that I would be so happy when it's raining, because I know that there will be no barking. I love dogs, and I understand that people want to have a space to enjoy the outdoors with their dogs. But the location of this dog park in such a residential area is not appropriate. This dog park is affecting the quality of life of people residing in more than 300 apartments facing West 25th Street. Also, it's not healthy for dogs to run in such a small concrete space and not sanitary for the neighborhood, because you can smell the urine the second you pass the area. It benefits only dog owners by cutting their time and distance for walking dogs. I have no doubt that the dog owners prefer to come to a place located close to their home instead of going to a specially designed dog park located a couple blocks away. I agree that in this place they meet new people and communicate, while their dogs running around, fighting and barking. Once again, I love dogs and have a lot of respect for their owners, but the quality of my life has been substantially affected by this park. Please relocate. We deserve and have rights to live in normal habitat. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse, can we go to Susan Wallet and then Rita Maloney? Is that possible?
Yeah, just give me a moment, please. Susan's coming over now.
And again, I believe Susan's speaking on the dog park, and if your remarks have been echoed by your others before you, we ask that you keep them brief.
Susan, you with us?
Now you can hear me, I assume.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Great.
Sorry about that. I didn't unmute there.
No,
Okay.
your 2 minutes starts. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Susan Wallet, and I live in Penn South, across the street from the dog park at Penn South Playground. Now that Chelsea Waterside Dog Run has been reopened, the Penn South Dog Park should be closed. At last month's WPE committee meeting, the public spoke first, and so we did not have an opportunity to respond to the remarks of committee members regarding this issue. I believe this is the 5th time that I have spoken to either the full board or the committee. Each time I asked, no, I begged for a later opening time. You can imagine how disappointed I was when the first suggestion was a compromise to limit the hours of the dog park to 8 to 10 a.m. and 4 to 7 p.m. As has been mentioned before, over 50% of the residents of Penn South are senior citizens, so it does not seem logical to have a compromise that caters to the needs of people working 9 to 5 without considering retirees who, like myself, are tired of the 8 a.m. dog alarm. If you were going to change the hours, why weren't they changed 6 months ago or even 3 months ago? The dog park should be closed. Only under duress will I ask that the hours of 12 to 2 p.m. and 5 to 7 p.m. be considered as an alternative to the unacceptable early morning wake-up call. There also seemed to be quite a lot of sympathy by the committee for the users of the dog park who are physically unable to walk to Chelsea Waterside. 2 people mentioned this when they spoke at the November committee meeting. One committee members seem to have forgotten is that they weren't able to walk to Chelsea Waterside before the dog park was opened at Penn South, and they were able to care for their dogs without it. In fact, one of the 2 individuals, Mary Jones, is one of the most highly recommended dog walkers at Penn South. For many years, she's been walking dogs without the benefit of a dog park and could continue to do so without one. It does not seem fair to ask so many people to sacrifice their quality of life, including sleep, work, and relaxation, to cater to the needs of a few people who were doing fine before the dog park opened. Thanks for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Now we'll go back to Rita Maloney.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'll try not to reiterate what all of my other complainers are doing. I'll try to do it as brief as possible. Last March, it was proposed over Facebook that this dog park was going to be temporary. If you look back at that advertisement, it says it twice: temporary alternative location until that other water park is finished. I fully supported it. It was so noisy, but I kept telling myself it's going to end. The dogs need a place to bark, to socialize, to play, and the people need a place to bring their dogs to. I thought that was fair. When I called my council member's office to ensure that this was still temporary, they could not give me an answer. I feel I was misled that I did not say anything about this from the beginning. This location is not the place to have a dog park. It is affecting our quality of life. Many of us work from home. I have to put fans on. My children have homework. I myself grew up with dogs. I love dogs myself, but it's just unbelievable listening to dog barking continuously all day long, and it's just not fair to us. I propose that we close this dog park since the other one is completed, and I would really appreciate any help you could give us in this matter.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you. We're going to pivot a bit, I think, and we're going to go now to Lisa Wager. Jesse, if we can, and then we'll do the 22nd Street. We're going to bookend these two big topics. Lisa, do we have you?
Yes.
There you are. Great. You're 2 minutes. Thank you.
Jeffrey cracked up when you announced me, but that worries me. Okay.
Oh, because I was expecting you need to talk about a museum show that involves a dog run and an open street at FIT. So,
well, we have a pet fashion design certificate, Jeffrey, but we can discuss that offline. I personally, as an Upper West Sider, of course, I'm a cat person, but okay. So my name is Lisa Wager. I'm the Director of Government Community Relations at the Fashion Institute of Technology, the SUNY College on 27th Street between 7th and 8th, with the Residence Hall of 1,000 people on 31st Street between 9th and Dyer, which is in the district. Happy holidays. First, just a moment of bragging. Newsweek's ranking of America's top online colleges for 2023 placed FIT first in the entire academic hierarchy of New York State and 22nd in the nation for online learning, which means FIT's public education is available to anyone in the nation and the world, and this is good. A work of art, the capstone exhibition by our graduating associate degree fashion design students, opened today in the Art and Design Gallery. That's the glass cube on the corner of 27th and 7th, and it's amazing. 2 years of instruction, and the students create show-stopping, stunning designs. Really, the talent is just giant. For these capstone projects, students were asked to imagine designing in collaboration with famous artists. So they visited museums and galleries. They drew inspiration from sculpture, paintings, even poems, to create garments with movement, volume, space, and light. The results are spectacular. I hope you get a chance to visit or at least walk by and look through the glass walls. Moving on, Designing Women, Fashion Creators and Their Interiors, opened last week at the museum at FIT, which is open to the public free Wednesday through Sunday. This is the first exhibition to explore the intersection of fashion and interior decoration. In this exhibition, more than 60 garments and accessories by 40 female designers, including Chanel, Schiaparelli, Marie Kant, Carolina Herrera, and Anna Sui, are accompanied by photographs of related interiors and a selection of large-scale drawings created exclusively for the exhibition by artist and FIT Associate Professor of Illustration, Bill Donovan. Oh, I need 15 more seconds. The exhibition begins with garments, objects, and decor dating to the 18th century, but the main focus is on the highly innovative period between 1890 and 1970, and the interiors range from luxe couture salons and apartments designed by the leading architects and interior decorators of their time to modest ateliers and homes decorated by the designers themselves. It's quite lovely. We hope you'll visit. It'll be up through June. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Jesse, why don't we do the two people who remain in the attendees with hands up? I'm not sure if they're stated topics, but they did sign up before 6:45. So we'll do them and then go back to the remaining list, which at this point, based on who's here, I think is all related to 22nd Street. So Shelley, I think that's that's you. Do we have you?
Yes, we do.
Great.
Hi, I am another voice about the 25th Street Dog Run. I am here to represent the hundreds of people who use it and support it. And there are many false statements that were made earlier and have been made and have not been vetted by anyone who's already biased against it. First of all, the barking is absolutely not constant. That is total hyperbole. And I have spent quite a bit of time directly over the park on a high floor. I can hear barking. I can hear sounds from the playground. I can hear traffic. Some people are really fixated on dog barking, and I understand the psychological component of that, but it is not true that it is constant, and it is the way it's being described is really very distorted and hyperbolic. I will say that, there may have been 100 people who signed a petition. I have no way of knowing whether that is true or not, but I can verify that hundreds of people, many more than 100, have sent their strong support for the dog run and have, and also have spoken to the fact that traveling a mile round trip is inaccessible to them. Yes, Penn South is a NORC. I'm a resident of Penn South. There are many elderly people with dogs who cannot walk back and forth to the dog run on 11th Avenue. Those are long blocks and it makes it inaccessible. Then there are working people and other people who don't have the time to go back and forth, or they have safety concerns about their teenage children going back and forth. It is not really accessible. And although this particular park was initially proposed as a temporary park, there's another location behind the Chelsea Health Center that was talked about at the last meeting. If this park is going to be taken away from that, meant like hundreds of supporters who have strongly attested to it, they should have an alternate for it.
Thank you, Shelley. We're going to go to, I believe, I don't know the name, it's under Reveron 41. And again, if your comments have been echoed, we ask you to keep them brief.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. You're 2 minutes.
My name is Marilyn Rivera, and I live in building 3B, apartment 20C as in cat. I'm not a cat lover though. Okay, so I am not fixated, and I'm not distorted, and I'm not hyperbolic. I am against the dog park. I am a New Yorker. I've lived in New York. I was born and raised in New York. I was born and raised on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and I lived on South Street. My view was of the FDR Drive and the Brooklyn Bridge. The noise, I got used to it. When I moved to Penn South 20 years ago, I lived in building 1, apartment 1J as in Jack, which is directly over 9th Avenue and 23rd Street. The noise was horrific, horrendous. There was the station, the ambulance station was there, and whenever any sirens came down the 9th Avenue, it sounded like they were in my apartment. I could deal with all of that noise. But the dog park, it has ruined my life. I can't sleep. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking I hear dogs, and sometimes I do because people walk and they just, but it's just so unfair. Especially, I'm a first responder, I'm a social worker in New York for more than 30 years. To hear that this place and this dog park, and I love dogs. That's the other thing that I wanted to say that I didn't say before. I had a dog when I moved into Penn South. I had a dog, a Chow Chow, and I couldn't move her into Penn South when I moved in here 20 years ago because they were not allowed. And so I left my dog behind with my son, who was older then, he was an adult. I left her behind just to be able to have an apartment here in Penn South. I love my community in Penn South. I love my community where I grew up, but the noise of the barking is unacceptable. It's crazy. I just can't describe how much it has affected my life. I'm sure that I'm echoing other people.
Yeah, thank you.
Other people. Is that it? 2 minutes?
Yeah, we're at 2 minutes. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to go to Joan Starr, and then we'll be moving to the 22nd Street Open Street conversation, where we'll be pivoting to 1 minute because we have 25 people signed up for that topic. And again, we'll ask you to not be redundant, and we'll start with Barack Friedman, but first, Joan Starr. Joan, are you with us?
Joan, you have to come off mute on your end if you'd like to speak.
There we go. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
We can. Your 2 minutes starts.
Thank you. Yes, I also live in Penn South. I do use that dog park. I don't want to have issues with my neighbors. But the barking that they're claiming is destroying their lives. It is the times that I've been there, and I pass there every day. That is so exaggerated. I know that when my dog barks, I bring her right out. And you know, I'm hoping that we can resolve, and that's all. I want to just another voice and support, and that's it. I know there's a lot to be discussed, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joan. We appreciate that. Okay, we are going to switch topics, and as I mentioned, we're going to go to 1 minute. My mistake. We're going to start with Inga, and then we can go to Barack Friedman. Inga, I think I saw you with us already.
Yes, I am. I'm on.
Great.
Thank you. Before I even start saying what I was going to say, I just want to say, please note, this was temporary. Things that are temporary become permanent, and they are hard to get rid of. I'm talking about the street.
But is this part of your 2 minutes? Because your 1 minute, I don't think you want that. So we pivot to what you've signed up for.
So if with the street closures, obviously, if you do this for one street, what precludes anyone or everyone from requesting it for their streets? The criteria used to determine which street closures are accepted is unclear. And how do you stop other streets from requesting it in the same neighborhood? How do we judge what streets get more deserving? Is it economic status, social status, political status, or do we just grant every street closure? The barriers on the streets are not good. You can't get through, taxis don't go through, cars don't go through. Have independent traffic studies even been done? Truly independent studies, not people who are connected to the board or to the government. Have all the residents on the block or the blocks surrounding that neighborhood been asked how this affects them? We already have traffic issues stemming from the dining sheds in bus lanes. There are dining sheds in turning lanes. There's poorly thought out no left turn on 23rd Street going all the way to Madison Square Park. We have a lot of elderly people, 1,000 residents with many elderly. They can't get in accessorides. They can't get taxis. Delivery trucks are impeded. Moving trucks.
Inga, that's a minute. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the minute's kind of short. If anything, we should be opening more streets up and then do traffic studies.
Understood. Thank you. I do want to just say for other people who have joined, put their hands up. Unfortunately, hands were raised after Jeffrey mentioned we would only take hands until 6:45. So if you are not on the sign up list, and you weren't on the original list, Paul and Cecil, I see you. For everyone else, we will not be able to get to you this evening. So next we're going to go to Barack Friedman.
Hey, everybody. Just want to say I'm a huge supporter of the 22nd Street Open Street. I just wanted to explain that almost 85% of residents in CB4 do not have a car. So I just repeat that stat. Almost 85% do not have a car, yet cars take up all the space, even on an open street. Like if you look at it, it's just parking up and down either side. And so if you say that's not enough, they need everything. They need the whole thing, and everybody else should just be forced onto these little sidewalks. It's just not fair. So it's an equity issue. Even Adonis Rodriguez said that we need to reimagine how we use our streets because the majority of New Yorkers, even the whole city, don't have cars. So anyways, I'll keep it short because I know you have a lot of speakers, so thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Candace Worth, followed by Cindy Loomis. Candace, do we have you?
I'll ask Candace to come over again. Why don't we move on to Cindy?
Great. Cindy, excuse me.
Cindy Loomis, I'll bring over again. Candace is coming over now.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We can. Your minute starts now. Thank you, Candace.
Okay, so I just want to be clear to Barack's point. The whole point of living in a city, yes, most people don't have cars, which is why we rely on taxis and Ubers and other ways of getting around the city. The fact that that street is closed has inconvenienced so many people, you cannot believe it. You have the inconvenience of all of the surrounding neighbors who need to access that street in order to get to other streets. And you also have a safety issue because every time we approach that street to go down that street to access where we live, it doesn't matter what mode of transportation you're in, you have to sit in the middle of 8th Avenue, blocking traffic to get out of your car to move heavy gates. So in addition to that, you have an argument that's been made about how, oh, the street's not really closed. Every single person believes the street to be closed. Every time I call an Uber, I'm on the next block, they go all the way around to 23rd Street because they assume the street is closed. The barriers indicate that the street is closed. So someone without the consent and majority wishes in this neighborhood has decided to keep this street closed to all traffic, inconveniencing an unbelievable amount of people in our neighborhood. And it is honestly, it's unconscionable.
Thank you, Candace. We'll go, oh, sorry, do we have Cindy now?
Yes.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Cindy. Yeah, we can hear you. Your minute will start now.
Okay. My issues, I understand why it was put in place to close the street during COVID, and it's laudable, and I appreciate all the effort everybody went into. However, if one were really to think about it, this is the worst block in the entire neighborhood to close. There is a garage. There are very few garages in this neighborhood, and there is no park. There is no school. There are not really any restaurants that open on this street. When I've ridden my bike down every day during COVID and after, I never saw anybody on the street playing. I think closing streets might be okay somewhere else. This is not the block to close. I think it should be thought about very consciously now that we're out of the pandemic. That's the end.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. We'll go to Jeff Preston.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm a father of 3 and represent my neighbors on the 400 block of West 22nd Street. I have 3 points to raise. 1, to date, residents of this block and neighboring streets have not been given a forum to voice opinions about how they feel about this open street. The positive impressions presented by the supporters do not reflect reality of how many residents in the area are against living with the barricades and the quiet street proposal. The 200, 300, and 400 block associations have yet to hold meetings to address this question or gain consensus, even with repeated requests to do so. At the revisionist meeting held on October 15th, about 100 people came, many opposed to the barricades. We came to speak and were shut down and not permitted to share our personal views. Since that meeting, some of us organized a petition to do the consensus work for the block associations. We have over 250 signatures from zip code 10011 and another 250 from nearby Manhattan zip codes of residents who want to remove the barricades and bring it back to a normal street. I've also shared comments from the petition with Jeffrey, the CB4 chair, and Eric Botcher's office. I think the Transportation Committee should review these comments and understand why people are so against this. This particular block in Chelsea, I believe, is a poor choice to make an open street or restrict the natural flow of traffic. If you look at a map of Chelsea and rationally decide which block could be an open street and limit traffic, this block would be not very high on that list.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Joseph, followed by Catherine Nessel. Sorry,
Thank you.
Joseph Newhouse. Yeah.
I'm Joe Newhouse. I live in the 300 block of West 22nd Street, 1 block over from the closed block. The organizers of the closing really are not defending the status quo. Their position, as I understand it, really now is just be patient. We'll turn this into a lovely block without barriers, but wait. But the argument is very telling because there really is no dispute that there is very little support for the existing barriers. In fact, the organizers of the block designation have proposed to reduce the period of closure to 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. But if everyone agrees that the barriers are bad, why should we have to put up with them for some period of years while the next step is decided? Let the future plans sink or swim on their own merits. Let us as a community decide whether this is the right block for this, not a few residents of the block who got this supposedly temporary measure through during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. We're gonna go to Catherine Nessel and then Keith Lightman.
Hey there. I just wanted to say that I fully support the West 22nd Open Street. I think that, again, I'd like to reiterate what Barack Friedman said, and that 85% of residents in CB4 do not have a car. Looking at zip code 10011, a whopping 94% of people do not use a car to get to work. So really, you can, even with some pushback, the vast majority of people who may not have time to be here do not use a car, and we are entitled to our fair share of street space. This open street achieves that, and there's still work to be done, but it's really important that we prioritize the needs of the majority and having an equitable way of using our streets. So I'll leave with that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Keith Lightman. I think Keith might still be in attendees, Jesse.
I believe Lowell is over. If you want to go, I can get Keith.
Okay, great. Lowell, are you with us?
Yes,
Yes,
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead. Your minute begins.
Okay, I've heard a lot of the points that I wanted to make already made, so I'm not going to belabor them, but just suffice it to say that I am very against having these barricades in place on the block. I live on the next block over, and I've had tons of times where I've been trying to pass the intersection and seeing traffic, back up into it, creating a very dangerous safety concern. And I'm just shocked that the city is okay, putting all these lives in danger for the benefit of a select few. And I think the free flow of traffic is integral to the proper functioning of this city, and whether or not you have a car. I think it is very important that we have all sorts of other vehicles that can pass these blocks. So I think I'm very much against keeping the barricades in place, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Lowell. Thank you. Sorry, I think now we should have Keith.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can. Thank you, Keith.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
My name is Keith Lichman. I live on the block between 7th and 8th and 22nd Street. And our street that is currently closed to traffic specifically discriminates against its residents and takes away our basic transportation services that other New Yorkers have access to. And it really, to me, feels discriminatory. And I can dispute with some of those who are in favor of it feel that it's not about how many of us own a car on the block. It's our access to basic transportation services, as others have said. Lyfts and Ubers will not do drop-offs and pickups. Taxi cabs no longer come down. And it just seems unjust and unfair to punish an entire block's residents because a few self-indulgent people who have spearheaded this would like to live on a suburban type street in the middle of New York City. I feel it's time to return to the block as we had it, which worked perfectly fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Oops, excuse me. Thank you, Keith. We'll now go to Melody Bryant, and then it'll be Molly Harris.
I don't see me, but I take it you can hear me?
We can, yes. Go ahead, your minute begins. Oh, we see you now.
Okay. All right. So I fully support this open street. We have 2 parks for kids nearby, but if you want a peaceful place to walk as an adult, you have to go to the Hudson River Park or Madison Square Park. Our open street has given residents of West 22nd some respite, both during the pandemic and since. The true inconvenience for us is dealing with exhaust, speeding, honking, and harassment from drivers, as I've experienced from 40 years on this block. This open street, like all open street, is open to traffic. The street is never actually closed. There are no plans for it to be closed. We have a garage on the block, and drivers can easily move the barricades to drive there. There are 3 garages in the area. Taxis, Ubers, and deliveries come through here all the time. The gates are not heavy and they're easily swung open, which is a design that we worked to come up with. City employees have expressed their support for our open street. The fire department comes by to practice with their cherry pickers. Sanitation has said they get their jobs better without traffic and harassment from drivers honking. Postal workers feel the same way. No eastbound block is closed. Drivers have the choice from 6 different crosstown routes within an 800-foot radius to get across town. Rather than trying to shut this open street down, we invite other Chelsea residents to join us to make a linear park to the river. For the sake of the planet, open streets are just one thing New Yorkers can do to make a difference. Thank you.
Madam. Thank you. We'll go to Molly Harris, followed by Nico McLean.
Is my video on? Hi, how are you? As a member of the 200 West Block Association, I want to clarify statements made on its behalf. As a block association, there has been no effort to reach out to the residents represented by us to get their input. In fact, we have not yet had a meeting to discuss this at all. I myself requested to be on the mailing list in March 2019, and though Ms. Wolf welcomed me on, I never received any calls for a meeting. We do not find a solution for the community so that cars can stay we do want to find a solution for cars to stay at a slow and safe speed, perhaps to raise crosswalk at 8th Avenue or visual coloring of the asphalt for drivers. There is no reasonable distinction between owning a car or needing a use of a car while a resident of Chelsea. Pitting car owners against other residents is not helpful for this discussion and not an accurate understanding of use of cars or other ways of transportation. There are no restaurants on the 200 Block Association, 200 Block West Block, 22nd Street. Copper Steel and Dim Sum Chelsea are on the avenues. That's what their websites say. Some would say the 200 Block Association, 200 Block of West 22nd Street is wide enough to handle a bike lane, and calling for any narrowing of the street makes riding a bike more dangerous, as there will always be cars on the street.
Thank you, Molly.
That's
We're
it.
We're at your time. Thank you.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you. Hopefully your neighbors have echoed your other comments. We'll go now to Nico McLean.
All righty, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you so much for your time. Nico McLean speaking, longtime 50-year resident, property owner in West 22nd Street between 7th and 8th Avenue. And I'm here to express opposition to the open block status. The barricades are not maintained on a 24/7 protocol, and at night I've walked past many times when the barricades are knocked over, people are tripping over them, and it's a blight to the neighborhood. It cost my now 91-year-old stepdad precious minutes in getting help in August of 2021. The driver dispatched to pick us up refused to move the barriers. Doesn't matter how light or heavy they are. It's not their job. They're a driver. And I had to leave my dad alone on the street to run up from 7th Avenue to 8th Avenue to move the gates to get the emergency vehicle to his aid. He was in full bradycardia, received a pacemaker the next day. The ER doctor said we barely made it there in time. Sorry, it was a very traumatic experience. No one ever issued a flyer or poll to myself, my family, or my tenants. It's a 2-residency building. It's not just for me, my family, or the tenants that I oppose the conversion of the street. It's for the elderly or challenged residents, unaware of the board's intention to make it permanent with further barriers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We still have a little while to go, folks, so please really do try to keep to your 1 minute. We're going to move to Samir, followed by Shayna Cohen.
All right, hello. Sorry, let me just quickly pull up my notes. Okay, so yeah, I'm a resident who lives nearby. I really like this open street. I walk or ride through all the time. When I'm coming, I actually used to work at Twitter, which is on 8th Avenue. And when I ride down from the West Side Highway, I actually go out of my way to go down West 22nd to get home, because it's just so much more pleasant to walk or ride on. It's just so nice to walk on a more quiet street where I don't have to, or bike on a quiet street where I'm not worried about a car, running me over just because, there are fewer of them. And one thing that I actually found surprising, whenever I walk by there, I actually wait to see when cars go through, they open the barrier. I'm like, oh, are they going to close it? Like, I always wonder. And they always do, which I was honestly surprised by. I expected people to just open it, drive through, and leave because I'd be ready to close it. But it's actually really cool. People like do the right thing. They open it, they go through, they close it. It works great. I love it. I love seeing people use it. People walk on the street or bike on the street or, jump rope or whatever else they do. And I'm a huge supporter. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now, now we'll go to Shayna Cohen, followed by Stephen Schramm.
Hi there. I am at Play Studio right now, so I'm just hopping in and out. I live on this 200 block of West 22nd. I love it. I walked outside this afternoon and I saw a couple walking in the middle of the street. And I said, oh, the barriers are out. And I took a breath and I got to walk in the middle of the street and it just felt so freeing. Fully support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shayna. Okay, we're going to go to Stephen Schramm, followed by Shrett.
Thank you. The temporary designation was made during the pandemic at the request of a handful of people with no community consultation. The emergency is over and the need for social distancing as well. What might have made sense then does not make sense now. Remove the barriers, return to normal. I was blindsided by the public October meeting where a barricade permanence plan and block revisioning was revealed. Rather than even discuss the option of removing the barriers, the meeting tried to explore options on how to keep it blocked. Yet 7/8 of those attending that meeting thought the barriers should come down. CB4 facilitators who were at that meeting were well aware of this sentiment. My 22nd Street 300 Block Association has not had a meeting for years and remains silent on this issue, depriving me and many others on my block of voice. We are disenfranchised by this. Imagine that the 22nd Street had never been so designated during the pandemic. Would any city planner currently pick this river-to-river block to be so barricaded today? It's a terrible choice of a block to barricade. Vehicles need to drive west to east, but half 24th Street's blocked by Madison. 23rd Street has bus lanes, turn restrictions. 26th Street close to Penn Station, always a mess. Blocking 22nd Street only makes it worse for everyone else and for every adjacent block. How can that be good? A block with the only active garage in the neighborhood? Take down the blockade.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Okay. Sorry. Well, I understand that Tret declined. We'll move to Tom Lunke.
Tret actually is joining now. So if you want to go with Tom and then go back to Tret.
Sure. Tom, do we have you?
Yes, I'm just putting on my video right now. Do you have me now?
We see you. Go ahead. Your 1 minute begins.
Thank you. The permanent city designated West 22nd Open Street has been in operation since 2020 and is maintained by a large group of volunteers, including seniors, police, fire, and sanitation workers. The street has never been closed to vehicles. Its use has been expanded to accommodate pedestrians per New York City guidelines. The accessory commercial parking garage with 85 spaces appears to have rebounded from the pandemic and has a multi-year waiting list. The October 15th Community Visioning Workshop,
Thank you, Brian.
We received 552 comments from 50 people sitting at 8 tables with discussions facilitated by an additional 13 urban planning, design, and transportation management professionals. A complete report analyzing all the workshop comments with suggested street improvements, including 2 options that do not require safety gates, will be available to the public by the end of this month. The proposed designs are intended to slow vehicular traffic and provide greenery and seating that is inviting to all neighborhood residents, business workers, shoppers, and tourists alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. We'll go to Tret, then we're going to go to Rich, and then we're going to call this session to an end.
Oh, thank God I have a minute as opposed to 2-minute dog talking. Hi,
go ahead, Tret.
Hi, everybody. My name is Trent Tierney. I lived in the block since December '89. It is one of the most beautiful blocks in the neighborhood, hence the desire to create safety, not just for kids, but for elderly people. I saw an elderly lady walking down the block and I felt safe for her. I myself was this is hard to do. The docket number is CR 006652-22NY. I was assaulted by a vehicle on this block at the corner of West 22nd and 80th Street, an Uber Eats driver, not because I'm an aging gay man, because I was in his way. I wound up on the hood twice. This talk of, so anyway, the accused has to stay out of trouble, take a attitudinal dynamics, meaning road rage, and an anger management class, and stay out of trouble by 219. This is insane. That otherwise he'll go from a misdemeanor to disorderly conduct. This is insane. He used the word faggot over this, over that. That was part of his colloquialism.
Right, your minute is up. Thank you.
I request another minute.
I'm sorry, we've limited the topic to West 22nd to 1 minute. We're going to move on to Rich, and then Paul's hand was up in the earlier piece, and we really are going to call it there.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much, Jessica, and thanks to the members of the board for doing this. It's really, you know, like an invigorating, I think, public forum to see this. Look, I live on the 200 block West 22nd. I'm a young dad, and I couldn't be more grateful to the folks who have organized the pedestrian street. I think it's just a wonderful addition, and you know, I hope that it continues going forward. So really appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you, Rich. We'll go to Paul.
Thank you very much. I'm in full support of this open street wholeheartedly. I went to a recent CB meeting where one of the people on the CB said, I pay my taxes, so I deserve to have a parking spot somewhere close to where I live. And I understand that because I used to own a car, a minivan, had to pay for parking, and it's awful. It's either expensive or you have to run around looking for parking. But I also pay taxes, and I don't own a car, and I'm one of the 80% of people who don't own a car in Manhattan. And I want my fair share of the space. And it's curious to me that someone had a statement earlier, the basic transportation services. That's not people taking taxis and Ubers. Basic is walking the bus, the subway, and riding a bike. And so all the people who do that need the space. Personally, I'd like trees, more seating, bike lane, wider sidewalks. So I want my fair share of the space back, please, as well. Back from the cars. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you all for your patience this evening and for coming to the community board. That will conclude our public session.
Thank you, Jessica, and thanks everybody for coming and taking part in our public session. We really appreciate it. Stay tuned to agendas for topics that you spoke on this evening in the coming months for the board overall. Want to keep the ball rolling here, and so I'm going to call for an adoption of the agenda, but there are a couple of amendments I just want to call out for folks. Item 9 has been sent back to committee per the applicant's request, and item 14, the new business item, has been withdrawn because of an agreement to go back to committee by the applicant. So I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please.
Motion to approve is amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any objections? Excellent. The agenda is adopted. On to the minutes, please, with thanks to Blake and Katie for the minutes. Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adopt the minutes from the November meeting.
Motion to adopt.
Thank you, Bert. Is there a second?
Yes.
Thanks, Christine. Any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are adopted. Moving on to the reports from our elected officials. I guess I can't hide the grin at the moment for the next person I'm gonna introduce, our esteemed guest of honor this evening, who for so long we have, I don't want to say taken advantage of, but acknowledged the consistency in his reporting, the due diligence in his duty to service our community and the state of New York, and to carry a flag for so many, not just on the West Side, but across the state. I spent 6 years of my career working for this individual And it is humbling and with great honor that I get to acknowledge and introduce our outgoing Assembly member and longtime member of the community, Assemblyman Dick Godfrey. So Dick, for your final report to Board 4, please.
How do we do a standing ovation?
A huge standing ovation, exactly.
Well, thank you very much. This is my my final report to Community Board 4 as an Assembly member. I remember 52 years ago when I first spoke as an Assembly member at Community Board 4. And, in those days, it was considered kind of rare for one of the local legislators to actually come to a board meeting and report on what he or she had been doing. I can remember not long before that when community boards did not really have any formal existence. They were created in the 60s by Borough President Percy Sutton, and eventually were enacted into the city charter, and now every community has one. Board 4, I have to say, and I often say around wherever I'm going, Board 4 is just unbelievably amazing that you have always had a membership of people who are smart, who know their stuff, who are really dedicated to the best interests of the community, who invest just amazing amounts of time, often far into the night, at meetings. And certainly Board 4 has been unusually effective among community boards at wrestling down developers who, if they'd had their way, Community Board 4's area would not look anything as human scale and as livable as it is today. Because it seems like every developer on the planet has wanted to tear down part of Community Board 4 and put up something that looks like some of the buildings in Hudson Yards. So really, thank you to Board 4, and it's just enormously dedicated members. And thank you especially to your current chair, Jeffrey LeFrancois, and all of his predecessors. I see Lowell Kern's face on my Zoom checkerboard at the moment. I'm really delighted that I guess it was me hiring Jeffrey long ago that brought him to the Community Board 4 area, and wow, has he really had a terrific impact on the community. I want to just mention, while I will certainly miss being this community's assemblyman, I have just been enormously delighted to have the assembly as my career for over half a century. It's really the only regular job I've ever had. I was elected in the middle of law school, and I'm really confident in my successor in the assembly, Tony Simone, who I've known for many years. Many of you, I'm sure, have known him for many years. His almost his entire career has been working for the community in one way or another. And I'm also delighted that a key member of my local staff, Matt Ty, is going to be Tony's chief of staff, and another one of my staff members, Ben Lowenstein, is going to be working for Tony. We will be at least, or he will be at least for the time being, keeping the same district office space that I've had for a number of years now. although we've been looking for larger space. So at some point, he may well move. But for the time being, you will reach him at the same address as my community office. If you like, I can give you his email address starting in January when he officially becomes the assembly member. And his email address will be Simone, S-I, M as in mother, O, N for Nancy, E, the letter T as in Tony, Simone T at nyassembly.gov. I think they will also be keeping the same telephone number, 807-7900. I think you will find a really strong and effective and loyal ally in Tony Simone. So again, thanks to Community Board 4. You do amazing work. You know, I don't think any of the Board 4 areas elected officials could have ever been anywhere near as effective, however effective we've been. Without Community Board 4 educating us and helping us to understand what the community needs and helping us all work together to achieve what the community needs. Keep at it, and thank you very much. And if you want me to take questions, I'd be happy to. I know you've got a
sure. I was gonna just give a quick summary, because I think a lot of folks don't realize that you're responsible for the Child Health Plus Act in New York State, which has provided millions of children with health care across the state long before other states had even contemplated the idea. Dick carried the legislation. He introduced the first marriage equality bill in the state of New York in 2002. He then went on to become the chief sponsor of the bill when it passed in the assembly for, I think, the 5th or 6th time. He carried the original law for medical marijuana in the state of New York. And I think most triumphant for many of us on the West Side, he was the author of the Hudson River Park Act, an absolute global extraordinary park that we benefit from day in and day out. And those are just a few of the highlights of what step in Albany that Dick has done. There's a litany of things he's done locally, but I did want to call those out. Mike, I see your hand.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, Dick has done some incredibly great things over the years, and you know, you recounted some of them. I want to insert a nostalgia moment. Dick and I stood in the same room, same courthouse, and were made members of the bar back in 1974. And you know, to think back then we were just kids. I think Dick was still actually in his first year or so in the assembly. But it makes me think how old we are. And right. But I am so honored to have had that opportunity to know that we stood there together. Right? We stood there together. So I thank you, Dick. Best of health and everything else.
Well, thank you very much. You know, I remember the day I was sworn in as a lawyer in the appellate division courthouse. And, you know, a very distinguished judge spoke at our swearing in, and I remember one of the things that he said. He said that when he was sworn in to be a judge, to be a lawyer, a distinguished judge spoke, and this judge said he didn't remember a word of what that judge said that day, and that judge saying. And you know, on Hudson River Park, it is, you know, I could go on at any length about how so much better than anybody had a right to expect it has turned out, and that's in part due to people in this community who helped make sure that the legislation we passed, creating it, protected the park from any number of intrusions that probably would have happened otherwise, and helped to help shape it as it was built. You know, my son and his family live in Battery Park City, and with my 4-year-old granddaughter, they often visit one part of the park or another. And I gather they tell her that, you know, Grandpa helped make this park. And I really wonder what goes through her head when she hears that. You know, like, does she envision me being out there, you know, with a shovel planting trees or what? But yeah, Hudson River Park is something I have really loved being associated with.
Well, thank you for that, Dick, because your kids will ultimately realize what you did. You know, there should be a statue. There should be a statue of you there. Okay.
Let's let him officially retire before we start talking about that stuff, Mr. Noble. Joe, I see your hands.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I've only known Dick for 42 of those 52 years. And I want to note some of the housing things that he's really made a difference with. He actually was here when the Clinton Special District was fought for and got established. So imagine that, which preserved the entire section of Clinton that was supposed to be demolished for a convention center being built on the piers on West 44th Street. He, in the Times Square redevelopment in 1984, he fought so heavily with the governor's office to secure us a $25 million fund for affordable housing in our district. In 1982, we had city-owned buildings to become co-ops that the city changed the whole deal and was pulling it out from the tenants' rug, under the tenants. That ended up in creating 600 affordable co-ops in about 50 buildings. He worked with the Clinton urban renewal area for years and decades as we went through every permutation to figure out what to do. And our community almost killed itself fighting over this couple of blocks of land. And Dick stuck with all of us as we got through it. And we have thousands of apartments in that location now. Another big one was the West Side Stadium. And his office was directly involved every step of the way, making sure we did not have a 90,000 seat football stadium where the Reston Rail Yards is today. In Hudson Yards and West Chelsea rezonings, again, they worked with us to secure thousands of units of housing. In a key moment when we were arguing about Hudson Yards, whether we should have mandatory or voluntary inclusionary housing, we would meet every week about this project. And Dick and I went toe-to-toe about something. And I said, we all want mandatory, but we can't get there yet. They'll give us voluntary. We had a vote among all the community members. Dick lost, the community prevailed. And the next day, Dick was out in a public press conference supporting what he had just lost. So that's what I want to talk about, our assembly member who did an amazing thing for us over so many decades and really stood just side by side with all of us to make our neighborhood what it is today. Thank you, Dick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Well, Dick, we really appreciate you being here, and as you have been many, many times, but I'm gonna move on to our next report in the evening. So best of luck to you and happy travels, my friends. Up next, I know the councilman is not here yet, but I'm going to go to Yiyi Wang from the Borough President's Office. Is she over, Jesse?
Hi, Jeffrey. I was just told that Mark is away. So okay. Yeah, but I was just told that Keisha Sutton James, our Deputy Borough President, is going to join us. So just give me a few.
We'll hold tight. We'll hold tight with the Deputy BP. With that, I will go to Olivia Glenn Rayner from Congressman Nadler's office. Olivia.
Hi, thanks, Jeffrey. Hi, it's been a while. I'm back and it's nice to be back. I've been over on the campaign side, but it's December and I'm here again. So I'll just give a few updates. The first is on helicopters. Congressman Nadler submitted public comment in late November opposing a new FAA National Park Service proposed voluntary agreement that would increase tourism and tourism helicopter traffic over Manhattan. And he's circulating a multi-member, so multiple members in Congress letter on the issue currently. Our office is also trying to move legislation through the House to restrict non-essential helicopters, and I think I've spoken about that before. And then finally, we're working on a letter to Mayor Adams requesting that his administration end concession contracts for tourists and commuter helicopters at city-owned heliports. In terms of student loans, I'm sure most of you had heard this already, but the Biden administration has extended the pause on federal student loan payments again. So as of now, the payment pause will expire on June 30th of next year. It's always good to end on some things to celebrate. So the first is we're very, very happy that Senator Warnock won last night. This is a huge win for Democrats. And the thing that we're most excited about is it makes it much easier and quicker to confirm judges. And then another more personal win for our office, and of course for the whole country, is the Defense for Marriage Act, which Congressman Nadler has been working on for almost 15 years, passed the Senate. It's now going to go back to the House where it'll pass again, and then on to President Biden's desk to be signed. And then just a general happy holidays from us at Congressman Nadler's office. And we're very happy to be keeping you in the redistricting. A lot of my job right now is handing a lot of our constituents and their cases off to other members, but we're very, very happy to have CB4 staying with us. So happy holidays.
Thanks, Olivia, for the update. I have a question from Bert, if that's okay with you, Bert.
Yeah, hi. Just a quick one. The helicopters and tourism, does that apply only to the New York City side of the river or also to New Jersey?
So I was speaking about kind of multiple letters. The one that we're working on in the House would not just apply to New York. That's what I was last told. But the things going to Mayor Adams, of course, that would just be New York.
Okay. Thank you.
It was a very quiet day as it relates to helicopters because of how foggy it was. Brad?
What's the legislation about drones? You know, I was going to ask you, Jeffrey. Does that take away? I mean, what is the plan that Congressman Nadler's thinking about? Because we don't want to be behind the 8 ball on that. So, you know, I know we're shutting down one thing, but we have a transportation issue in the city. So I'm curious.
So you're asking about like if the helicopter bill does pass, you're saying that then drones are just going to replace that?
Well, I'm just wondering what's the full thought process. So we're trying to ban something, yet the rest of the cities around are going to be going to drone deliveries. And if that's the right location, you know, I think it's something that we need to review.
Okay, I haven't honestly heard about any legislation going through our office about drones, but I will pass that along to the folks working on the helicopter bill. We're working on it with a bunch of different Congress members in Hawaii, et cetera. So I will ask them about that. But thank you very much.
Thanks, Brad. Okay, and thanks, Olivia. Welcome back. Let's see. Do we have the deputy BP yet? I don't think so. And we are waiting on the council member. Oh, she's here. You're on mute, but go ahead. The floor is yours.
Sorry, my little trackpad is mighty sensitive. Hi, CB4. Excellent to be with you guys this evening. I will start out by lifting up, I think, you know, kind of ceremoniously, this is one of the more important things I think that we should be talking about. And just, you know, having the pleasure of following by a couple of people, Assembly Member Dick Gottfried, want to lift him up and celebrate all of the years of service that he offered to our city and your neighborhood. I had the great honor and pleasure of presenting him with a proclamation a few nights ago, two nights ago, with you, Chair LeFrancois.
Yeah, it was 2 nights ago.
And thank you. It's all a blur. But yes, you know, celebrating his 50+ years of service in the Assembly. So I want to first, you know, acknowledge his presence and his service and thank him again for all that he's done for our city and in particular for the neighborhood that this board represents. Moving on to a few points, just wanted to make sure that we reiterated, as we do every single month, that the open meetings law, the executive emergency executive order 267 was extended for COVID-19, the COVID-19 emergency declaration through December 20th. As always, we will be keeping you updated as to any further extensions, which we're always grateful for, because it makes this coming together much more seamless. Moving on, wanted to lift up the Manhattan Borough President Leadership Training Series that I want to thank many of you for participating in this leadership training series that Trisha and team were able to put on. It took place the week of November 14th. The purpose, frankly, was to provide many tools and instruction and, frankly, best practices, both to community board members, but also community members who were also welcome to join. It was an opportunity to learn more about local government processes, and other, there were a number of different sessions, such as equal employment opportunities, employment opportunity, combating bias, conflict of interest, those three of which are mandatory sessions for community board members, as well as understanding the city's budget and land use and zoning, et cetera, et cetera. There will be another round of these sessions in the spring. So those of you who are not able to join for the 3 mandatory sessions will have another opportunity, another bite at the Big Apple come this spring. And we look forward to seeing not just community board members, but community members. It's a great resource for people to learn more about how to be engaged with our city. I will, staying on the same in the same vein in terms of understanding how to be very engaged with our city, community board applications are going to be opening up later on this week. So for those of you who may be rolling off or maybe stepping down or what have you, for those of you who are listening and watching, who are not already on the community board, now is your opportunity to learn more about this process. The application will be released later this week. So look for that to be coming through to, from our team to yours in the next couple of days. I should also mention that the capital funding application will also be released very shortly. Last week, our budget team led 2 webinars about capital funding. One was about for not-for-profits, and another one was about us, it was specifically for schools applying for capital funding. I believe, I can double check, but I believe that not just that those sessions should be on our YouTube channel, as well as the sessions that happened in terms of the leadership training series. Those should also be on our YouTube channel. If not, all of them will be up very shortly. So look for those resources to gather more information about how to apply for capital funding, and also how to be a great community board member. And then finally, because I want to keep my remarks tight tonight, I just want to remind everyone to get your COVID boosters. Get your flu shots, get your COVID boosters. The boosters are available through New York Health and Hospitals at sites such as Bellevue. I literally went on the site today because my family and we all need to get boosted. So there are appointments I saw at Bellevue. You could also do it at your local pharmacy. And then, of course, appointments for homebound visits are available by calling 877-VAX-4-NYC, and that's 877-VAX-4-NYC. With that, I will just wish you all a very happy holiday season that we are now in the midst of. And that's it. That concludes my remarks on behalf of the Borough President.
Thank you, Deputy Borough President, for being here. I have a question, if that's okay with you, Chris.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Chair. Hi, Deputy Borough President. Nice to have you on today. Pleasure. So I live on 47th Street between 8th and 9th. And during the pandemic, I collected 1,000 signatures asking for the closure of Restaurant Row, if anything temporarily, as a public park space. So far, we really haven't had any movement. I've been told that hotel drop-offs are taking priority at the Marriott, at the Ryu Hotel off the Caddy Corner on 8th Avenue and 46th Street. Hoping that you can join a 47th Street, 48th Street Block Association meeting to discuss any possibilities on conversations there. Because, you know, as Dr. Fauci said, we're still in a pandemic. Things haven't changed. You're promoting booster shots, and our small businesses are still hurting here in Hell's Kitchen. So please come. And then secondly, another temporary street closure point. We have Midtown West Elementary School between 8th and 9th on 47th Street, and there's pickup and drop off. 47th Street, actually most of the 40s is known to have some of the most narrow sidewalks off Avenue in all of New York City. Parents there have come to me over the last couple of years asking for the potential for temporary closures during pickup and drop off. And then there was pushback, I believe it was from the city, claiming that 47th Street is a turnoff to Times Square and that it may not be possible. But I think it would be possible for 2 or 3 hours out of the day, morning and in the afternoon, to provide some sort of closure for the children and parents there. We don't have speed bumps on 47th and 48th Street. We do have cars that go above the speed limit. And I'm hoping that you once again can join our block association, 47th Street, 40th Street Block Association, to discuss those possibilities moving forward. That's all.
It would be my pleasure and honor. I cannot share my email address, but I know that your chair and your DM. Oh, muted. Am I muted?
No, you're good. We can hear you.
Oh, I thought you were
I know how to find you. Jesse knows how to find you, and we can connect Chris accordingly.
And as well as Yiyi, and so we can work on getting something scheduled.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for that, Chris. Deputy Borough President, we appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
My pleasure. Have a great night, everyone. And again, happy holidays.
Thanks.
Chris, how about you send me an email with those topics and we'll connect, okay?
Let's do that right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. We are awaiting the arrival of our council member. And so just because of that, we might as well keep the ball rolling. Oh, did I just hear
Eric is here. Eric should be here.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
No worries. Hey, everyone. I am coming at you from the Food and Finance High School cafeteria here for a forum with parents and students. We just had food prepared by the students at Food and Finance High School. Really, really cool experience and great to be with everyone. Happy holidays. I'm going to start with what I am most excited about, and that is Community Board 4's housing plan. When I started in the city council, I met with city planning chair Gorodnik and Jessica Katz, the chief housing officer. And what I asked them was to work with us from the very beginning, rather than coming at us with pre-baked plans, and let us, our office, Community Board 4, other community boards, work with you to craft proposals, because we have, especially in Community Board 4, we have a very willing and sophisticated partner on housing issues that wants to create lots of housing, affordable housing. And I'm very excited to say that that process with Community Board 4's housing plan is happening. And Community Board 4, with the housing plan that you produce, that would create thousands and thousands of units of affordable housing. I reached out to Jessica Katz and Dan Gorodnik, and we had some great meetings, and I'm really excited to not let that plan just sit on the shelf until the next mayor comes around. I think we need to implement that plan. And in fact, I think the future, and I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that the future of New York City depends on us implementing that plan and creating the affordable housing that we desperately need. So I really want to thank Community Board 4 for producing that plan and for being a leader on this issue, because that is not something that you're seeing from a lot of community boards around the city. And I'm very excited to help you get that implemented. And so very much looking forward to trying to just move forward ahead on all fronts on that. As most of you know, the city has decided to use the Watson Hotel on West 57th Street as a HERC. What they call it a HERC. It's a humanitarian emergency response and relief center. That is a place for newly arrived asylum seekers to get immediate housing upon entry into New York. And the model there is to connect them with points further, with familial networks, social networks, community networks, and to help them get housing elsewhere. So that is now fully operational. And we are working with Community Board 4 and Health and Hospitals, which is actually the operator of that, to make sure that that's a success and that any issues presented by that are nipped in the bud. And we had a meeting, was that just today? It feels like, or yesterday?
I think it was yesterday.
It feels like a long time ago. About there's a lot of bikes outside, like chained to the scaffolding. We need places for people to be able to have a cigarette other than right out front. So we're working on that with Community Board 4, and I also am working to arrange for the residents of representatives from the buildings on the block to come in for a tour and see what's happening inside. We're really hoping that it's a successful model. It seems to be exceptionally well run compared to other places. So we're working hard on that with all of you. On West 17th Street, as many of you know, there's a former school, a shuttered school that is the property of the Department of Sanitation. And I believe Community Board 4 has issued letters on this, because that is, it's abandoned, it's shuttered, but it's historic. It's known as the former colored school. And we want it to be landmarked. And we're working with block associations and Community Board 4 to not only support the landmarking of that building, but to ensure that the building is not allowed to deteriorate like many other buildings have been. And the Department of Sanitation owns it. They don't know what they're going to do with it yet, but our concern is that it is open to the elements, and we were able to arrange a visit to the building. So we're going to be going to that building with members of Community Board 4 and some block association folks on December 15th. I want to make sure that what I'd like to do is allocate funding to that building, but in the immediate, we want to make sure that that roof is secured. I know that this is a really big priority of the Chelsea Council of Block Associations and Historic Preservationists. So we're working very closely on that. I passed my first two pieces of legislation since I was with you last. The first is a bill that is part of the RAT action plan, we're calling it. And my bill will require developers, when building a building or substantially renovating a current building, you have to hire a pest management specialist before you get your building permits. It's a common sense way of ensuring that construction sites aren't proliferating rodents. And the reason that they sometimes proliferate rodents is because during the excavation, they unearth the land, and then during the construction process, there's many places for harborage. So that bill was passed and signed into law by the mayor. So I'm really excited about that. My second bill was passed by the council, which is an issue close to my heart, and that is suicide prevention among young people. And this bill will require the Department of Education to distribute information about the new 988 crisis mental health helpline and other resources about suicide prevention to students in New York City schools. I'm very proud of that bill, and it's so needed now with young people going through the toughest time that they've gone through in generations. So really excited about that. We announced a new initiative to combat graffiti vandalism in Council District 3. I'm allocating $30,000 to a nonprofit called Wildcat that works with people with barriers to employment, people with disabilities, formerly incarcerated, formerly unhoused people, to remove graffiti throughout Council District 3. We're going to start with 9th Avenue and Hell's Kitchen, because if you walk up 9th Avenue and Hell's Kitchen in particular, on all the green boxes on the light posts, you'll see a lot of graffiti, a lot of caked stickers and tape and graffiti vandalism, light posts. But we're also going to offer this service to property owners, small business owners. So please send us in addresses of places with graffiti vandalism that we can have picked up. I really want to make sure that those stretches are looking very nice. Next week, we'll be planting the first of 1,000 trees that I'm going to be planting. That's a goal. We're going to be planting 1,000 street trees this December. We're going to be putting in over 200 street trees throughout Council District 3. Please send us the locations of places where you want street trees throughout the district. Very important for our neighborhoods. We want to focus also on parts of the district without a lot of street trees, where we can create new tree pits and new trees. There's a lot more to talk about, but I won't talk any longer. Really, really appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you.
Thanks, Eric. A couple of quick questions, if you'll take them. Mike, please.
Yeah, thanks, Eric, for everything that you've been doing. I'm curious to know, we did this Night Chelsea working group thing that started 3 years ago. And I'm wondering if that inspired you to set up your affordable housing deal here. And we're still at it. I'm one of the. It's all trickled down to, after 3 years, 10 members of the community who are watching the redevelopment here. So we're working on that, and it's about to begin. Next June, let's say the renovations will start. So did that inspire you at all?
That working group.
You were part of it, Eric. You were with us from the very beginning.
I sure was. That working group is I'm so proud of the work that we did together, where we all sat around a table every Tuesday for nearly 2 years to come up with a plan to fix, to meet the capital needs at Chelsea, Elliott, and Fulton houses. And absolutely, I think whether it's preserving our public housing, which is a critical piece of our housing stock, and frankly, just shameful that we've allowed our public housing to deteriorate, especially across the street from Hudson Yards, across the street from Google, that we have people living in those conditions. It's truly shameful. So there's nothing more important than having our public housing fixed, but also creating new housing for the 60,000 people living in shelter, and for the hundreds of thousands of people who are in the workforce and housed, but can't hang on more to their housing. So they need housing. We need housing on the whole panoply of, we need supportive housing, very low income, middle income, and market rate housing. We need it all. And that's what I'm excited to work with Community Board 4 on.
Thanks, Mike. Lowell?
Eric, I don't know when I think you joined us a little bit late tonight. I don't know if you heard all of the members of the public weighing in on either side of the dog run question. I am not, I don't want to start a debate here right now about that, but it is on the agenda for WPE tomorrow, and I'm hoping you can join us to weigh in on your thoughts on the dog run, because we did it for about an hour and a half last WPE meeting, and I expect it to go on tomorrow. And while I'm no longer committee chair nor board chair, I am hoping that you will be there to join us tomorrow.
I love the dog run. I'm not gonna lie. That's on a piece of property that, as someone who, I live around the corner, and it's on my walk to work every day. And for years, it was like a windswept, abandoned lot. Now when I walk by, I see, the dogs are cute, but you see neighbors like talking to each other, meeting each other. They're clearly neighbors who didn't know each other before, and a real community is formed there. I do know that there are, the barking has bothered some people. So I look forward to, now is what we said was going to happen is what needs to happen now is we need to evaluate what to do. Should it stay there? Should it not stay there? Should we look for another location in the neighborhood? But this was a trial, and the letter that Community Board 4 put out in May said exactly what's happening now, that when the other dog park opens, we want the Parks Department to come back, and we'll have a conversation about what the future should hold. And that's what we need to do now. It shouldn't be like any one person's decision. I think the community board and the community need to come together and make a decision on the future of the dog park there.
All right. Well, thank you for your perspective on that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dale with the final question.
Yeah, Eric, thank you. Real quick, since you mentioned tree pits, I wanted to flag again a kind of problematic tree pit, which is on 35th Street near 10th Avenue, where the owners of the building in front of Kima paved over 2 tree pits. And then it was supposed to be addressed, but they're stalling because of a temporary permit. They missed a whole planting season, and the pits are still paved over.
Well, that's against the law. And Jordan, let's make sure that we escalate this with parks and ensure that they're held accountable for that. You're not allowed to pave over tree pits. That's against the law. And thank you, Dale, for 10th Avenue and Christine and the 10th Avenue bike lane. That was my first rally as a council member, was to call for a safe treatment for 10th Avenue. Really excited and proud that we're all working on that together.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dale. Eric, we're going to end up getting you a list a lot longer than 1,000. So be ready for it, because we love our trees. So thank you for being here tonight. Enjoy Food and Finance, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, Eric.
Take care.
All righty. Where did my agenda go? I think I have to pass it over to the district manager for their report. Jesse?
Hi, everybody. Sorry, just give me a moment. Jesse Bodine, district manager of Community Board 4. My computer does not want to work with me. So briefly, I think it's already been said, but right, we are remain virtual, due to the amendment to the open meetings law, the state open meeting law, that allows us to be virtual as long as there's an emergency order in place. And there is such emergency order in place for the month of December. So we'll obviously let you all know about that as we continue on, if any changes happen in the new year. December committee schedule changes. Chelsea Land Use Committee will be meeting next Wednesday, December 14th at 6:30 due to scheduling conflicts. That has been updated on the website. That has been updated on the committee schedule. That is in the Dropbox. It has been sent out to the committee members, and I know that the word is getting out. We'll send out an official blast tomorrow. Just please notice that because we are having to do this on the same night as another committee, we are using an alternative Zoom. So it is not the same Zoom as you always get. And so if you want to participate in the meeting, please check our website and sign up and register and link, and you can do so there. We'll be blasting out it again, like I said, multiple times. Besides that, the only other committee that has got a slight change is Exec, which is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday the 27th, because the Christmas holiday is observed on Monday the 26th. All other committees meet at their regular and scheduled time. I will end my report there unless there are questions.
Any questions for our esteemed district manager? Okay, thanks, Jesse. I'm following the agenda this month, and so accordingly, we're going to have the officer elections, because you'll recall we forgot to do nominations at the top of the meeting last month. So passing it back to Jesse and Sabrina for this.
Sure. So I don't believe Sabrina's with us, so I'm just going to take on the role. You've been sent the link, which is your ballot. And just in case you are unaware, we are holding executive officer elections right now. You'll be filling these ballots out. You'll be submitting them. We will report at the end of the meeting that what the count will be, and who our new executive officers will be for the 2023 cycle. So if I'm happy to go through the ballot just for the sake of saying we did it. I think we all, there's slight changes. I'm sorry, hold on. Give me a moment. Okay, so for chair, we have Jeffrey LeFrancois. For first vice chair, we have Jessica Chait. For second vice chair, we have Leslie Bozagan Murphy. For co-secretaries, we have Katie Stokes and Roberta Barnett. So if you could please fill out your ballots now. I see a hand, JD.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Just clarification. What is abstain on a ballot, first of all? And secondly, normally ballots you can write in. Not that I want to write in, but why isn't that a normal?
Well, no, with this, because
No?
we took what the, I mean, I don't think there's anything in our policy that requires there to be a write-in. We do take nominations from the floor, which we did last month. And so there were no nominations from the floor.
Sure, I don't want to raise the issue, but formally in written ballots, you could write in. So I guess with this thing,
Sure,
that's out.
So I apologize if that's I would have to look back. I don't necessarily remember that. I know when we had written ballots, people probably would write in wherever they wanted. It's a little different unless we have to create a specific space for it. So I'm happy to make sure that
Jesse, I'm not for clarity, just so we are up and up.
I appreciate it. No, completely. Chris?
Thank you. Yeah, I changed my email address. I just emailed you. I need the ballot for the executive election in today's agenda. But JD, over the last 6 years that I've been on board, we've never left a space blank, and we've always allowed for nominations to cure a month prior to election. So we always allow for nominations the month prior, which has always been November, before we vote in December. That's how I followed it, even when we had written. But yeah, that's the way that MCB4 has been going.
We'll do our due diligence and make sure we're doing it accurate. If we're not doing it accurate, we'll make sure. And I will have an explanation come January full board.
And still need those ballots at the email address I sent you. Thank you.
Yep, I will get to that in a moment. All right. So is there any other questions? Please fill out the ballot and submit it, and we will let you know how it goes at the end of this full board.
Thanks for that, Jesse. And happy voting. On to the chair's report. A couple of things. I want to start by acknowledging something I didn't at the beginning of the meeting, in part because I expected the council member to take it up. But as many of you may have seen in the Times last week, and then in local news long before that, the unfortunate circumstances happening at nightlife establishments in our district, and in particular at gay bars and queer spaces in Hell's Kitchen, men in particular being targeted, and 2 who ended up dead. Initially, they thought it was from an overdose, but their bank accounts were drained, and those are now being investigated accordingly with the district attorney and the NYPD. There are other instances where this has happened, and luckily those individuals have survived. I want to thank Eric and Brad and Tony Simone as well, who did a blitz of nightlife safety along with the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Entertainment to educate folks on how to be a smart reveler, if that's a term I can throw out there. It's alarming that something like this is happening in Hell's Kitchen on the west side of Manhattan, given the atrocities we've seen taking place to LGBT people as targets across the country. I think it's important folks are aware of this. And so I just want to acknowledge that it's taking place in our community board. So sort of keep an eye out, share this with your friends if it hasn't been a topic of discussion. Continue to enjoy, but as always, we live in a city where not everybody is our friend. So please be safe, especially going into the holiday season. I want to pivot to some good news as well on the board. Christine and I learned recently that a bunch of neck downs at intersections, which we'd long advocated for to improve pedestrian safety, were installed. We've been asking for these for years, actually, and a surprise to us, this happened in Hell's Kitchen in Chelsea in the past 2 weeks. A neck down is when you take and you create more space for the pedestrian to step off the curb safely and to require less time to get across to sort of the safe zone on the other side of the street, and to create what's called daylighting so that vehicles can more clearly see pedestrians at the foot of the intersection. I think that happened across 5 intersections at our district in the past couple of weeks. So that's really exciting. 4 intersections, thank you, Christine, in the past couple of weeks, years in the making on those asks. Couple of other really good things. Huge props to Maria and to Paul and to others who volunteered. We held our very successful coat and diaper drive back the end of November. We're looking to do a similar effort to focus on the single adult population in the shelters across the district. So please stay tuned for that continued need. Chelsea Land Use and the Housing Committee had a meeting with the state ESD regarding Bayview and the plans for that facility. I'm excited to report that things are moving forward there. We were promised a minimum of 6 units of supportive housing as mitigation for the Penn Station redevelopment, and that's moving forward. I anticipate those committees to be taking it up on their agenda in the month of December. We'll probably have a public hearing at our January full board meeting on the topic and transmit formal responses to the state with regards to the RFP for that site in the coming months. So really great progress and looking forward to the work from Chelsea Land Use and Housing on that topic. Continuing on the housing topic, HHS and MCB4 staff recently toured the Watson Hotel. This was mentioned by the council member. There's actually another tour that's also being arranged. And then earlier this week, we had a meeting with folks at HHC, the Health and Hospitals Corporation. I want to emphasize that while we continue to have concerns and some criticism for them to improve, this facility at the outset is being managed remarkably well as compared to others in our district. So it's a really, it's a positive engagement and a positive sign that we're seeing at this facility. Hell's Kitchen Land Use continues to work with the Historic District Council to figure out the sort of Hell's Kitchen Historic District brochure, and to continue to make sure there is eyes and ears and sort of awareness on the desire for a historic district in Hell's Kitchen. And then finally, on small meetings and working groups, we have been on a roadshow with our affordable housing plan. We have met with all of our elected officials and a number of others about this plan. And stay tuned for more on this. It's really exciting and we don't want it to get dusty. And so we're making sure, Joe, Jessica, and I in our discussions with folks that this is of something we really take seriously and care a lot about. So stay tuned for more on that. The NYU Capstone Project is continuing its work in due diligence. We provided tours to the leaders of that team of the district, which was really interesting. I think even for those of us that call it home, the tours were really illuminating. And I thank everybody for taking part in those that was able to. And then we've arranged a tour for the team of Hudson River Park as well, which is really exciting. The Cannabis Working Group met with Senator Brad Hoylman's office regarding state legislation around illegal cannabis, and they'll be attending the December 13th town hall on cannabis hosted by Councilmember Gail Brewer and Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal on the Upper West Side. I want to thank Jesse Greenwald for his oversight of this working group, and note that a number of other boards also have these working groups. So there's a whole lot of eyes on this stuff, and we're trying to track and keep information flowing on this topic. The Penn Station Area Civic and Land Use Project, the Public Realm Task Force held its second meeting last week, at which I was in attendance along with Christine. Nothing to report there, but continuing to figure out what we're going to do in the public realm. The key factor is that the state, there was a commitment of $50 million to be spent in the public realm that would come from the first development project that took place around Penn Station. However, seeing that some of the developers in the area have pumped the brakes on plans for development, the state has committed the $50 million no matter what to public realm improvements. And that came at a great volume of voice from Christine, Paul, and me to make sure that there's improvements no matter what happens in the area. So stay tuned for more on that. And then finally, Bert and the Port Authority Bus Terminal Replacement Working Group has been working hard to agitate the port to continue to meet with us as they've sort of formalized their team. We are waiting in the wings to aggressively walk the district with them, walk the neighborhood with them, and re-engage accordingly, because there's a lot of outstanding information on that project. That was a long report for me tonight, so I'm pleased to say that now we're going to move into the business portion of the meeting. And accordingly, pass it over to Bert and Frank at BLP.
What we're suggesting is if it were meeting live, we want to bundle items 1 through 5, unless there are any questions.
I almost choked on my water because that was it. Any questions for Bert and Frank at BLP? Excellent. Thank you,
None
Bert.
of these, but I just want to say none of these items, applications include a dog run.
Thank you, Bert.
Okay.
To Leslie and Marty at WPE, please.
Marty?
Yes, thank you. It's a letter supporting the operation of a New York outrigger as one of a number of people that bring our neighbors to the Hudson River estuary.
Any questions for WPE? Mr. LeBron.
I apologize. I had to work during a WPE meeting and was unable to attend. I generally am present for those as I'm on the committee. Could I get a breakdown of disturbances to the area that's being requested to move into the estuary? And like any environmental disturbances, and were there any people who spoke against it?
I don't understand your question about disturbances.
The question is this: during the committee hearing, was there any like questions from the committee or from the Environmental Protection Agency or from or information provided from the Hudson River Trust about environmental study being done to move that group up? And was there any testimony from the public or from committee against it? That's all I'm asking.
I still don't quite understand the first part of your question. There was no speaker that spoke against the operation of the outrigger organization. If you're concerned that paddling and kayaking on the river causes environmental damage.
No, I just said whether or not there was, if it's a no, it's a no, that's all.
It's a no.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Any other questions for WPE? All righty. Transportation, Christine and Dale, please.
Hi, everyone.
Excuse me, Dale, just Lowell, is that for transportation?
It's for transportation.
Okay, thank you. Dale, go ahead, sorry.
Okay. So transportation has one active letter this month, shocker, on the 10th Avenue bike lane.
And with that, we'll go to Lowell for questions.
Yeah, I've mentioned this to Christine. The letter does mention the Avenue School at between 25th and 26th on the west side of 10th. Whether we like cars or not, a lot of kids who go to that school arrive by private cars. It's not only the school bus arrivals and departures, it's a lot of black cars that take those kids to school. And it may make sense to start the bike lane just north of there. Otherwise, you're going to have kids crossing the bike lane all the time, and you're going to lose not the one lane of traffic for the bike lane, but you're going to end up using 2 lanes of traffic on 10th Avenue. Between the drop-off lane and the bike lane, and that backs up anyhow in the afternoon going to the Lincoln Tunnel. So for pickups at the end of the day, you may have chaos there. If we could just start the bike lane, it would be my idea to start the bike lane a couple of lanes north of there. I understand that's not what the letter specifically does. The letter asks for more feedback. I just ask on lines 109, 110, 111, you mentioned not only the school buses, which you mentioned the side streets, but the multitude of black cars that show up at that school as well.
Right. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Mo, because it does. Yeah, we do mention the bus traffic, the potential bus conflicts, but we don't mention the private vehicles drop off and pick up. But I just want to be clear. What is your suggestion?
Just that for this point, that the letter mentioned that there is site-specific consideration, not only for the school bus arrivals and departures, but the multitude of black cars that arrive there too.
Yeah, we'll definitely add that.
Yeah, my suggestion would be to start the bike lane at 26th Street, just north of the school. But
are you saying no bike lane between 14th Street and 26th Street?
Or take a break for those couple of blocks, maybe between 23rd and 26th. I don't know how to handle it. I just know it's going to be chaotic.
Okay, well, I do think
that's Dale.
I do think there are other solutions to resolving conflicts between vehicles and bikes other than like eliminating the lane for blocks. But yeah,
please, that's beyond the scope of this letter. The only thing I'm asking you to add to the letter is the black cars.
Yes, we will add that. I appreciate the addition.
Yeah. Hi. I read the letter, and one of the things I was going to bring to your attention was exactly what Lowell said. All the limos and black cars waiting for the privileged kids to leave avenues. Not only does it affect 25th to 26th to 25th Street, it affects 25th to 24th Street. They and then around to 24th Street, going west towards 10th Avenue, towards 11th Avenue. They just line up all the way. But in addition to your list here, I know you talk about a Target delivery. Well, CVS on 23rd Street has also delivery trucks. And I'm assuming we're talking the bicycle lane on the west side of 10th Avenue. So there's also a garage at 25th Street. There's a garage parking at 20th Street. And you further on line 84 and 85, I just have a question. Well, one, I want you to maybe cite those also in the issues in terms of designing the bike lane.
Yeah, Bert, would you mind sending us a
I will,
language
no
on that?
problem, Dale. But on 84 and 85, just as a question, you say we would also like to see this project designed to the future for the future implementation of a designated bus lane for M11 service. And I assume the designated bus lane would be on the right side of the street. So what are some of these design items which you want implemented in anticipation of the bus
Well,
lane?
I think it was made. I mean, it's not to say that there would be like specific design elements, but just not anything that would preclude the creation of a bus lane on the other side of the avenue.
Okay. Okay. Not quite, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but visually, I just don't know. What would the west side do that would preclude something on the east side of the street? But, okay.
Well, again, it's just to flag the possibility
Gotcha.
of the potential of a designated bus lane, not to say to DOT, like, you know, I mean, we're going to review this, but also like, just to put the seed in this letter that we would like consideration of a designated bus lane on the avenue as well.
And you might want to throw out the possibility, and of course, maybe some of the residents in the neighborhood from 14th Street up to whatever, 57th Street, 42nd Street, you might look at the possibility of no parking. When you have a bike lane on one side and of the street and a designated bus lane on the other side of the street.
But we are not ready to design that as
I know, but I'm just.
We do point to like activation of the parking lane.
I'm just thinking of how 10th Avenue operates going north and going south. Well, from the other side, as a funnel to the Lincoln Tunnel.
Yeah.
And it's clear on a Friday afternoon in the summer, it begins at 2:30.
Bert, I just sent Dale. Bert, I just sent Dale a list of the different points we raised.
Okay, thanks, Lowell.
Yeah, got it, Lowell.
I like working on it too.
All right, thank you guys. Charlie?
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, this is not a new innovation, this protected bike lane. We have one at 8th, we have one at 9th, there's one on 6th, there's one in part of 7th. So the bike lanes have gone by CVS's before, and they can unload and load fine. Maybe Target's a special situation, and that's why it's in our letter. And then as for avenues, it sounds like there's a real problem with black cars and avenues, and it sounds like we should talk to avenues about that. But I don't think a $62,000 a year school and the kids taking black cars rather than the subway or the school bus or a bike would be great. Hopefully the kids will start biking to the school because they'll have a protected bike lane in front of their school. That would be wonderful. So I understand that it's a conflict, but this is also, it's a parking protected bike lane. The parking's still there. So there will still be a lane of parking for the kids. And perhaps there could be some, you know, hotel loading zone type thing that we have in front of hotels and protected bike lanes. But overall, I just want to make sure, I'd love to see the kids bike to school and not take the black cars.
These kids are not going to bike to school.
Thank you, Charlie.
Well, why not? They're not going to bike to school. Why? They're not going to bike to school.
They live
miles away, Charlie. They live miles away.
If Jesse, could we mute the crowd, please?
Yeah.
This is pretty shocking.
This is not, yeah.
This is Dale.
Betty.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say thank
Jesse,
you for the comment. Thank you for the suggestions, the friendly suggestions about but this isn't exactly the forum.
Yeah, I'm gonna thank you.
Yeah.
Ask you to pause for a second.
Sure.
Betty, the floor is yours for questions.
Yeah, this was an awesome, thoughtful letter. And I did earlier today submit some suggestions on picky edits, and a larger edit might be to move the community board voted blah, blah, blah. And in the first paragraph, which is our usual design for a letter, and somehow it felt to me that the letter was so long that maybe you could have a sentence or two, you know, just mentioning some of the things, you know, the reader knows that there's coming up all these kind of topics. I mean, it's a very long letter, so maybe you can make a little squashed summary or something.
Yeah, and it's about to get longer. So yeah, Betty, thank you for your feedback earlier. I neglected to mention, we are gonna move that, the vote count to the top line, and we will do a summary to kind of like, to summarize the contents, you know, following, just to make it a little clearer for DOT and other readers.
Okay, that's it.
Thanks, Betty.
David.
Yes, Dale, Christine, thank you for a great letter. I just want to second what Charles said, and I support it totally. So that's all I want to say to save time.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. Chris?
Thank you. No, I read the letter. It was a great letter, and it's about time that we get a bike lane running continuous up 10th Avenue from 14th Street up to San Juan Hill. I do have concerns about including, any concern for drop-offs with black cars. But if parking, not permanent parking, but rather a standing area or an offloading area could be designated in that spot, versus losing the totality of the bike lane, I really would appreciate it. But I echo Charlie and David's concerns as a bicyclist who, puts his neck on the line to go north to south.
I mean, I think the goal of the itemization of the individual potential points of conflict is for DOT to get back to us with a very customized design for each block, which they've done in the past, and we've been able to shape part of that customization. So that's the goal.
And I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much.
Any other questions on 10th Avenue? Thank you, Dale.
Thanks.
Joe and Maria, Housing, Health, and Human Services, please.
I'll take the first two. Maria will take the last one. The first one is a letter that was for support of funding to HCC for legal services for tenants in mixed income buildings. Until we understood this, we thought they were able to represent everyone. However, all tenants now have an income test due to their funding stream. So they came to us with a specific request to have funding to have a broad range, to represent a broad range of tenants with a broad range of incomes. Just to note, when we vote on this, I will be voting P&E. Although Clinton Housing has no financial interest with HCC. HCC has a 99-year lease on a store in an affordable housing building at a below market rate. And just for abundance of caution, I'll be voting P&E. Any questions on this one?
Thanks, Joe. Christine?
Yes, Joe, I have a question. I think that the content of the letter is very good.
Christine, which item?
The one we just talked about, HCC.
Oh, HCC. I'm sorry.
Right.
Gotcha. Sorry.
I was just a little puzzled by the detail, the level of detail which is in the letter looks like extreme. And I was wondering whether we should really bring it up a little bit to say, this is what we want to achieve, because it talks about the people and the salaries and all that stuff, which are not usually things that.
No, it was they submitted an actual funding proposal to us to consider.
Like it looks like we are approving a funding proposal where CB4 doesn't have that job.
No, it's not uncommon that a not-for-profit would come to say, we have a certain proposal for funding. Will you, community board, endorse it?
Okay.
In fact, that's actually what happened.
Well, you have the experience. My reaction there looked like, we were supervising them. And I think if you want to make it a little higher level, that would be helpful.
I think maybe we should note that they came with this proposal to us specifically, because that's
yes.
Right. Got it. Okay.
That would be good. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Christine.
Thanks, Christine. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
With no other questions on HCC?
No.
Okay. The next item is regarding overconcentration of shelters and social services and a lack of notice and transparency in CB4. So in the last 3 months, we have had really since the summer, a number of shelters that has almost doubled our shelter beds. And the biggest problem has been that DHS and now the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management, or HHC, the newest operator of shelters, has not consulted or talked to the community board in advance. The results being that we have a permanent shelter sited next to a temporary shelter. We have a temporary shelter sited across the street from a large supportive housing development. On West 51st Street, the Washington Jefferson Hotel was closed. That's on a block with 2 other supportive housing facilities. So really, in the discussion, the committee came when the Watson being cited, which we were informed at first would have 450 beds. and we've learned subsequently has 1,000 beds. And even though I will note for the record, in the tour that I did with Jesse and Eric Botcher's staff last week, that is probably the best run shelter facility we've seen so far. Professional, tight, secure, a whole different level. But 1,000 beds coming in is remarkable because those folks, many will have social service issues. And as this ramps up fully, there will be a sense, it will be an impact on the broader community. So therefore, the committee decided to write specifically laying out how many beds have been added, the lack of notice that we have received, and making it very clear that at the same time, we remain supportive of social services and shelters, and we remain supportive of asylum seekers. That was a very key thing because many committee members have volunteered or assisted asylum seekers who have come to our district. But it is clear that there is a general way in which DHS presents things that is not transparent, it is not clear, and they would frequently say, we don't know this, or here's what it is, and then a month later, it's something else. So we wanted to put this in writing, we wanted to write to the mayor, and note that I think Katie, there were a couple of editors in this, myself, Katie Stokes, she did a lot of reorganization of the letter, and Jessica Chait, and a key phrase that Katie put in here is housing emergencies are no excuse for continued poor planning. That it's constant that the city hides behind the housing emergency or now the asylum seeker emergency, but they're just not thinking of it. They're not planning, they're being opportunistic. So this is, and the letter ends specifically, without advanced planning, without advanced presentation, discussion, and review to ensure ongoing stability of our neighborhood, MCB4 requests no additional social service facilities or homeless shelters be cited in Manhattan Community District 4. That does not say we are not going to accept or willing to consider facilities or homeless shelters or any sort of thing. It's without that prior notification and planning and presentation. So I leave that and start with Yadira.
Well, no, Joe, actually,
sorry. Sorry.
That's
yeah.
all right. I want to share a reaction first, and then I'll run it through the questions. And that you said the last sentence was what I wanted to make a suggestion on, actually, and thank the committee obviously for the letter. My suggestion would be to break that into 2 sentences. That it would start with MCB4 requests no additional social service facilities or homeless shelters be cited in the district without advanced presentation, discussion, and review, period. This will ensure ongoing stability in our neighborhood and provide for reasonable public input. So I sort of throw that out as a friendly to sort of reframe that sentence at the end, given there's a couple of strong points that were being made there.
So we're switching the order.
Yep.
And then adding reasonable public input.
Yeah, I'm happy to send you this if there's no, further objection, but I think it makes it a bit more straightforward, I think.
Thank you. I think so too, Jeffrey. It sort of just lays it out.
Cleaner.
Right.
Okay, Yadira.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to share my opinion on this. While I can respect the need to not criticize DHS, I strongly believe that they have not shown us the respect or common courtesy we have given them through the years. At one of our most recent meetings, when we asked about a new shelter opening, they couldn't or wouldn't even give us an honest answer. When asked about certain situations, they flat out lie and get defensive with us. It is my opinion that it is time to put our foot down with DHS. It is time to reestablish some rules, relationships, and how they manage their facilities, which have been poorly managed for far too long. And I can personally tell you that I have seen and heard awful things about the poor treatment of the people at some of their shelters. And I personally had an experience where I entered one of their facilities to ask about making donations, but they all thought that I was there in need of their services, and I was treated quite poorly. So that's my opinion on this. So I definitely support this letter.
Thanks, Yadira. Paul?
Thanks. I think I want to repeat a couple of points that my first point Jeffrey raised already. Restructuring that last sentence would make it much more coherent. So I support that change. The other thing, you mentioned the addition of Katie's language of poor planning. I think we could add poor planning and mistreatment of human beings as a clause to add in there, because it's not only about poor planning, it results in mistreatment of people. So I'd like to suggest we add in a clause about that. And the third thing is, you mentioned early in the letter that there should be somebody in the mayor's office, a point person who's responsible for these decisions. And I think that needs to be brought up a little bit more, like maybe even in the conclusion to say, designate one person whose responsibility is to notify us within 48 hours of any of these changes. So maybe strengthen that point a little bit more too. Otherwise, great letter.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Paul. Chris?
I'm an active participant today. Thank you, Jeffrey, so much for the friendly amendment that you suggested, because it does make it a far more coherent and stronger position for the board, and I support that. I do support this letter overarching. One of the things that I will give, I'm going to provide context, is that when I worked in the 41st Council District, which is Brownsville, East New York, East Flatbush, Crown Heights, we did have this problem as well, especially in the Bed-Stuy area, in the Brownsville area, where hotels were constantly being transferred over into homeless shelters without notification from the city of New York. There was conversation about legislation with regard to whether or not these are actual land use changes. And that's a question that I think this board and people who care about the lives in those buildings need to investigate and expand upon. You know, this is one of those things where we're asking for notification. Once again, that's a legislative ask to come out of city council. And so that's something that would have to be required there, because we're talking about a strongman government. Lastly, but not leastly, there is a person responsible for citing these places. They only answer to the mayor of New York City. This was true with the de Blasio administration, as it is with the Adams administration. And the de Blasio administration had decided to continue push and shadow these openings of homeless shelters without speaking to the community, and most importantly, their peers in city council. This is something that's just structurally and inherently wrong with our city government. And I believe that Community Board 4, with the letters that we write, need to continue to pursue transparency and oversight in these matters, because what happened to Yadira is unacceptable. But in addition to that, there have been other instances because of poor siting and poor planning where families have been put in harm's way in Hell's Kitchen, and that's unacceptable. We've seen a decline in quality of life here, and we need to continue pushing forward in every committee meeting at HHSS to ensure that we get a response from the executive branch as well as our legislative branch to ensure that we have proper oversight on this so that lives don't fall through the cracks. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Katie?
Thanks. I would propose a friendly amendment. And I think this is what Paul just mentioned, and Chris a little bit too, but we actually specifically talked about it at our meeting about the need for coordination and a coordinator. So I think in the conclusion that we should say that MCB4 requests the creation at City Hall of a coordinator for shelter and social service sites. I think actually it would be super helpful that we also say there that we would like that coordinator to, well, actually, this was mentioned, I think, earlier by Paul too, but, and this had been in a draft, that coordinator could then be responsible for having to give notice to community boards, you know, within, if it's an emergency, it has to be at least within whatever, 24 or 48 hours. And if it's permanent, they have to make sure that they come before the community board. So, the friendly amendment is that we definitely make explicit reference to the coordinator at City Hall for shelter and social service sites. And then I also think in the language in the conclusion where we're asking for no new sites without presentation and discussion, we just have to be really clear there what we're talking about. We have to say that it's for permanent sites, that we expect there obviously to be, for them to come before us and to talk to us so that we can have appropriate.
I have to say in our committee, we do not distinguish permanent from temporary because.
Okay, if I may finish.
But the issue here, Katie?
Joe, she is continuing. I think she has to finish the point is all. Okay.
Thanks. So one of the things that I really appreciated about our discussion was that we did talk about the fact that a lot of the sites that have opened recently are under emergency orders. And of course, by definition, there isn't, a couple of months notice of something that's going to be opened under an emergency order. So I feel that if we just leave the language as is right now in the conclusion, it's asking the city to do something that they can't agree to. They can't agree to any community board saying, oh, by the way, we're oversaturated. So if there is an emergency, I don't know what the emergency is in the future. If there's an emergency, don't put them in our community board. I think we have to say, don't open any more here, permanent ones, without coming to us. Of course, that's part of the process, but we have to acknowledge that under the emergency orders, anyway, it's the city can't agree to that. Not that they have to open their emergency ones in our district. And indeed, thankfully, when they opened 57 hotels, they opened one earlier in our district and all the others somewhere else. But obviously, we just have to acknowledge, anyway, the importance that there is a distinction between emergency things and permanent. And I think that this is great language as long as we're clear that it's applying to permanent. Thanks. Oh, actually, well, and then I had some other little comments, but I can send those to you, Joe and Maria. Thanks.
Thanks, Katie. I guess, so I'm hearing an addition of the word permanent in the language I proposed in the closer there, is what you'd like to have happen, but I'm seeing that might not be considered a friendly amendment. And so.
And then also just the other point was about the creation of the coordinator.
Yes, oh no, I think that's clear. My question on that, Katie, was you are specifying that it be inside City Hall and not at an agency. Am I clear on that?
Well, at least what we talked about during our meeting, we were saying it seems like different agencies are sometimes doing some of this stuff. So it would be great if it was at City Hall.
Well, I liked that you were saying it was coming from City Hall. I just wanted to make sure that was the case. I thought that made sense.
That's what we discussed.
So, is there, given the resistance to inserting the word permanent in the closing sentence, if there is potential for a compromise here of what would be considered friendly, how would we frame the difference of communication between an emergency situation and a permanent situation? And I say this because given that we've been in an emergency situation for over 3 years now, almost every single instance that I can remember, we have found out after the fact, and sometimes days after the fact. And so I wonder how we can couch this to acknowledge that communication in an emergency, doesn't always flow in an effective and efficient manner. But this is why we're also asking for a coordinator, right? Because their job would be to communicate no matter the situation, emergency or plan for permanency, right? Sort of with the community. I see sort of head nodding on both sides a little bit there. Is there a way that we think we can frame that speaks to the fact that no matter what, we want communication, but we are cognizant of emergency situations, and that's why we want a City Hall coordinator?
I think we can frame this, but we cannot say for emergency purposes, for the simple reason it is a specious argument. Citywide, the city has an obligation to provide shelter. They do not have an obligation to provide shelter in the easiest, most opportunistic way, grabbing any hotel in our district. And that's why we cannot allow this to be just emergency it is a highway to drive a truck through.
I think that I mean, they could say there's a housing crisis and a shelter emergency tomorrow, given there's 60,000 plus New Yorkers living on the street right now.
It's already been declared, Jeffrey. It exists today.
Exactly. So I think that communication is paramount. And so I think this is where we can leverage the request for the coordinator, that a key facet of their job is communication.
Jesse, I have a question.
Chris, hold on, please, because we've got 5 other folks in the line.
But this is.
I appreciate that. We've got 5 other. I'm seeing a lot of head nodding of other folks in the line that probably want to speak to this. So Katie's raised this. It sounds like we've come to a sort of a compromise on the way we're going to frame communication through this coordinator role and how that can be a part of processes, no matter how they're brought to us. Roberta.
Thank you guys for the compromise. I wanted to echo support for a form of compromise here where it seems pretty apparent both from the city's action in the past couple of years and likely prior that like they will use an emergency to cite things in very short periods of time, and making an ask to provide like advanced review may be unreasonable, even if it sounds extremely reasonable to members of the community. And so I appreciate that there's a focus on proactivity in the planning process. I think mentioning the coordinator or a form of a coordinator certainly makes sense. Another potential recommendation would be to have kind of a proactive social service planning process, not unlike a community-led planning process where there would be some form of feedback or community engagement that happens on a regular basis. Maybe it's every year or so. It could be with the community board, with housing health improvement services, but where they're engaging proactively relating to like where is like an appropriate place to cite certain social services, where there are hotspots or other concerns. That type of thing could help when there is a need to cite a facility in a very short period of time. So that might be a friendly amendment, but I'm not entirely certain about that.
I guess I just wonder what is new in terms of what is sort of already in the letter. I know like the way we're going to frame this communication desire, be it emergency or permanent, and I was sort of smithing while you were making a comment, Roberta, so I may have missed something, but is there more to like something specific out of this role we're looking for? It sounds like the community planning aspect of things, right?
It would be a request to be proactive about planning these sites so that when an emergency does arise and there is a requirement to cite facilities in a very short period of time, you have community feedback. It already exists because there's plenty of community feedback already that could absolutely be taken into account and should be taken into account for future sightings.
I think what she means, Jeffrey, is sort of maybe a sentence talking about an overall community plan for siting, right? In other words, like the proactive part is doing it in advance, Roberta, right?
Right. Because I mean,
like a
frankly,
framework or something.
That makes sense because half the time they come to us, they don't realize they have something already in existence down the block.
Right.
So I think that's something we can frame right into this sort of section we're carving out here. Thank you. Aurora?
Thank you, everybody, for all their comments before me. And I echo a lot of what everyone has already said, especially some of the comments that Paul had made. But I do want to express this word permanent versus emergency. So about 2 meetings ago, when we were in our separate committees, I had spoken to somebody from DHS, and I pressed very hard to ask, are you putting up another shelter? Several times. And I phrased it very, very, very clearly. So much so that I think some of my committee members were like, all right, calm down, Tiger. And the response that I was told is, not at this time. Within 12 hours, I think it was, a new shelter was put up as an emergency. So putting emergency versus permanent, I don't think there's gonna be the nuance of that seems too hazy for this process. I think we just have to deal with this in a very concrete manner after I had that experience, or else there might be a couple more, hold on, tigers, coming about.
Thank you, Aurora. Christine?
Yes, a very important subject. So, two comments. One is because at the beginning we're talking about numbers and you know, a little bit of saturation, etc. It may taint our request where people look at our letter and say, okay, what they want is they want to be consulted to essentially say no. And I think we need to be careful about how we position that, because I think the intention is to say, we want to have meetings and communication to say yes, but to say yes the right way. And I think that is not coming out strong enough at the beginning of the letter. You know, the goal should be that we have a meeting and we are receptive and we want to have a plan. I think the idea, Roberta's idea, is to talk about a proactive plan, like we have an affordable housing plan. We should have, you know, a homeless service plan or whatever that we work on with that coordinator so that they understand our, you know, the context. And the other thing is that then at the end, if we are saying we don't want to have another a facility unless, I think we should put that at the beginning, if this is the purpose of the letter, and say we don't want anything unless you do A and B. And the A is we have a proactive plan put together, and second, there is a coordinator and a communication. Because our history is that we have been very welcoming, and we have, the proof is we have so many of them, etc. And it's not about saying no, it's about planning it. So maybe, I mean, I would see the letter being more focused and powerful if it was done that way. I don't know. That's the way I understand
So
it.
if I heard Christine, as we've all heard many times, she's saying to put the ask at the top of the letter.
No, yeah, but I also changed a little bit of the tone, you know.
So we have an overall problem, and that is we received recently our fair share evaluation for the siting of the shelter of 519 West 49th. That indicated to us for the first time on a per capita basis, citywide, it's 18. How it works is shelter beds per 1,000 people.
Right.
Citywide, the average is 18%. In our district, it's 23 or 24%. And they did not include, Christine, the Watson, the Travelin, all the units.
So we need to put that too.
We actually do have a concentration issue besides just a, you know.
I agree with you, but if we are going to ask them to communicate, then their expectation is we're rejecting it. And so maybe we put that data in the text there, saying even though we have 25% versus 18%, you know, we are still welcoming people, but it needs to be done the right way. Otherwise, we're going to be to the point where we just say no, right?
Thank you, Christine. Maria?
Thanks, Jeffrey. I would echo what Christine is saying about putting the ask up front, like she usually does, the way you framed it, Jeffrey. And there was something Aurora said. I agree with Aurora's comment also about the difference between permanent and emergency. And I think it is, regardless of if it's an emergency or permanent, I think the focus is about coordination and planning and the oversaturation. And I think that needs to be upfront. That also needs to be made clear in the conclusion.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you. Dale?
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty troubled by the fundamental intellectual framing of this letter. Like, don't exploit emergencies, at least not in our district. I don't have a solution. I just have to express a kind of ick factor with this letter, and with the gist of it. But I do think that the suggestions that Christine made go away towards improving it.
Thank you, Dale. Chris, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Apologize for jumping in earlier. Thank you. So ultimately, I don't think we need to make a difference between emergency and permanent, because ultimately what we're talking about is a change in land use. It's a change in use of land, change in use of property. And regardless of times of emergency, when this community board or any community board sees a change in land use, there's a conversation between the city and this part of city government over here. There's always some sort of conversation. There's always for lack of a better term, a shot clock. So I don't think that there's anything wrong in asking for an appointment within an agency. I think there's something we shouldn't be asking for an appointment, within the mayor's office. What we saw in the de Blasio administration was a fundamental lack of interest in speaking to this community board or any community board for that matter. But, from my personal experience, this community board especially. But the letter should speak about there needing to be dialogue and a shot clock, and that a plan be put into place so that way the families and individuals being placed in these shelters, temporary or permanent, are given the human rights that they deserve. And currently they're not. And I wouldn't even consider numbers, whether or not we've hit a per capita threshold. I think it's purely about a plan and purely about dialogue. And one of the most important things about that is advocating for an obligation, regardless of a time of emergency, to have that conversation with community before something is cited. That's all.
Thanks, Chris. Jesse.
Hi,
for the record, Jesse would be the only person I would allow to jump the line, just for the record. So thank you also for your patience, Jesse.
No worries. I wasn't going to say anything because I think the general sense of the letter was something different than I was thinking. But since Roberta brought it up, and I think since a number of folks have jumped on it as well about the plan, I think, and I think I'm just going to make this suggestion, which right now what it is at least for permanent sites is it's an open RFP process. And I read the RFP and nowhere does the open RFP process say anything about consulting with the community board. And I think that would go a long way if there was a language in the open RFP for these providers and these developers that they come to DHS and say, here's our proposal. It's 500 units here, it's 500 beds there, blah, blah, blah. And there's somewhere it says, well, did you consult with did you consult with the community board, which we request of that. Any other RFP, we would request for that for affordable housing, we request for the parks, we request for any of that. So why not make that simple ask to say that DHS's open RFP process, add in the language that says, they would recommend, they suggest, I forget the right word, Joe, they would look highly on if the applicant, did at least one meeting with the community board. And that's initially really where it happens, because by the time DHS is coming to us and giving us notice, that they only do notice if the provider has site security. The only way you have site security is if you have already spent money on a lease and all of that. And so we're already behind the 8 ball on that. So I think if that one request could maybe make a big difference on permanent sites. I will just say on temporary versus permanent, I'll just state the facts. When I started here in 2015, we had 5 temporary hotel shelters. Okay, we at the end of the de Blasio administration, they got rid of all of them because that's what he wanted to say. He wanted to be able to say he got rid of all the temporary sites and then there was no plan. And guess what? The Skyline is back, the Aladdin is back. And as the city needs to house people, right? We need this, but there's no real difference. I'll be honest with you, with temporary and permanent. The real difference is the level of care. as someone else was saying. I think Paul was saying that. So that's the real difference. In terms of how long those sites go on, they can go on forever. And so that's just the reality.
Thank you, Jesse. Katie, I was gonna end this with Jesse. Do you have something new?
Well, I guess it was a question of Jesse about what he just said.
Please, that
Well,
is germane.
Yeah, but sort of also related to the previous point. So, so Jesse, you just said that there's no sort of difference between like sort of emergency and permanent. But I guess the question is, there is a distinction, or how do you see it through the process of what the distinction could be? Because, you know, if 10 buses arrive tomorrow and they have to put people somewhere, and then they're never going to agree that they're going to have to go to before some community board first a month later before they can cite something in somebody's community board. So what is that? Is it like, should we use the language about like commercial hotels, or like, what do you see as the distinction between that and just keeping something going for a long time? You know, how do we respond? How do we acknowledge that we're smart enough to know that, yes, there are emergencies, but not to let the emergency be abused? But we have to show that we're sophisticated enough and frankly, welcoming enough to understand real emergencies.
Yeah,
So Jesse,
I understand.
guess
And just to be clear, I'm not stating that as a fact of government. The DHS would tell you the exact opposite. There is a difference between temporary and permanent, and they don't count temporary as permanent, just as the fair share document that we just received doesn't count. You know, they're talking about the 49th Street families with children's shelter on 49th Street as a permanent one, and their fair share analysis doesn't include the Skyline next door because it's temporary, but it's 300 units of temporary families next door. So, you know, that's just to be clear on that. I just wanted to say that's my opinion, not like a fact from the city. Listen, I don't know if there is a silver bullet on that. I think, you know, I do think some sort of coordination is helpful, some sort of planning, knowing we all know what districts have the most hotels, right? That's not rocket science, right? It's us, it's CB5, it's Long Island City, right? I mean, so there should be some thought about that, right? That's really where, when emergencies happen, we're going to be the catch-all, or one of the catch-alls, one of the safety nets. Let's talk about that. As we did actually already a little bit with the plan that was presented to this board by the Housing Committee, I think last year, right? Where we actually took the analysis, did some very, you know, nuanced analysis of who could take sites, how many beds, that kind of stuff. So I will say, in terms of an affordable housing plan, comparing it to we have the bones for that. Do we have the interest of the administration or an agency to listen to us? I don't know. DHS is going to tell us all the time. We would love to have community boards tell us where to put shelters, right? And we might have some of that information already, and we can certainly go back to DHS with that. But I still think DHS doesn't act until a provider comes to them with.
And I think that's a great idea to have that right in the But I'm just wondering how we can fix this letter so that we know we don't look like we're asking for something impossible.
I'm not a wordsmith, unfortunately.
Yeah, but Jesse, the letter that we're doing. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Maria. I think there's some of this. I think we have a strong gist of a letter with some changes that I see a lot of head nodding on. I don't want to do, frankly, I'd like to avoid the call for an additional amendment or a motion here. And I think there's some of this that can continue to be done offline. I sent some stuff already quickly to Joe, Maria, and Jessica. I think this is good. This is not going to be a letter that gets turned around tomorrow.
No, it won't.
We have some continued work to do on it, and for good reason. And I think we've taken a really good census here tonight. The final two hands up, it's going to end with JD, but Aurora and then JD, please. Aurora.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Quick question to Jesse. I'm sorry.
Okay. JD, you're going to get the last comments, but I'm going to go with Aurora first. Sorry about that.
Thank you. So just very quickly, just to your point, Katie, I'm thinking something more along the lines of when we ask DHS, do you have anything that you can possibly think of that might be coming up, putting something in the letters as quickly as they possibly can, letting us know in advance. So even if it is 12 hours, this is the perspective plan. And if we do need beds, this is where we're going. Just that kind of heads up is more than enough notice. That's my thought process. I haven't talked to anybody. That would just be what I would be thinking.
Thanks, Aurora. Mr. Noland.
Yes, thank you, Jeffrey. Quick question to Jeffrey, and I'll touch on, a number of people have already touched on this. Roberta's suggestion, I think, was excellent. Jesse, the community board is a city agency. We are considered a city agency. So what is the responsibility of another city agency, not just to communicate saying we're doing this, but to collaborate? I think there should be a responsibility. Joe, I put this to you too. It's not just to communicate, oh, we're bringing this in. It's to work with the board. I think other people have suggested this before they come in. As a fellow or a sister city agency, I think we deserve some respect that way. And I think the letter to the mayor should say, we are a city agency and we deserve collaboration with a sister city agency, something like that, for your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, JD. And thank you to everybody for their comments. I'll echo Jesse, who always said that discussions like this make our letters better. So I think this typifies that this evening. Does housing has one more?
Maria has that.
Maria.
Oh, we're up. All right. Thank you, Jeffrey. So this letter is at our last committee, we had also West Hab come and give us a presentation about their site, which is at 440 West 41st Street. And the committee came up with some requests and a question that we wanted to find out more about, and I'll just give you what it is. The letter is to West Hab's CEO and the Commissioner of DHS to create a community advisory board starting in January, security rounds around the block, develop the backyard space into a landscaped courtyard for the families, DHS to work with DOT to increase pedestrian safety at the crosswalk of 41st and Dyer, DHS to relocate families to the from Skyline to West Hab units that are vacant, because they said they had approximately 25 vacant units, I believe. And also finally for DHS to provide CB4 with the lease term and any lease conditions. And
Thanks, Maria.
That's it.
Any questions on the new facility on 41st Street?
Oh, and thank you, Betty, for the, the edits.
Thank you. Okay, thank you to Joe and Maria and to the Housing Committee. Up next to Clue, Jessica and Carrie. I also want to give a shout out just quickly to Jessica and Carrie. Hopefully there is a news story coming up on the school we've been dealing with in our district, the number 4 colored
school number 4.
Thank you. And this is worthy news story. And I look forward to our participation via Jessica and Carrie on that. So thanks to you both on that, and to your letter.
Yeah, I'll take this one. So, it's hard to follow up with floor area ratio after this conversation. Nevertheless, we have a letter that, as Jessica mentioned, in its simplest form is to formalize a zoning text amendment that this board has already approved in January 2019 to amend the height and setback regulations of the Special West Chelsea District to allow for the enlargement of the Otis Elevator Building, which has already been approved by LPC, and to amend the zoning text amendment that was adopted in 2009 to ensure that it will continue to apply to this enlarged zoning lot. And these changes are limited to this site only.
Thanks, Carrie. And just so everybody knows, this is a ULURP, which
It
means,
is not a ULURP. I don't think it is a ULURP.
Well,
It's
it's
a
a
Non-ULURP land application.
Right.
which still means, I was sorry, that we are gonna have to take a roll call
Yes.
on this item.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I broadened it. Any questions for Terry on this letter on 11th Avenue on the elevator building? Okay, so I want to thank the three committees that are not reporting other business this evening. And then any final questions? If not, we're going to move to voting.
No, there's
You
new
have
business,
your,
right?
what, Christine?
There is a new business, no?
No, it's been tabled.
Oh, sorry.
The app, that's okay. The applicant has agreed to come back to committee, and so they're going to
Got
take
it.
it up there.
Got it.
Jeffrey,
Item 14 is still there?
No, item 14 is going back to committee.
That's the new business. Okay, thanks.
Paul?
Jeffrey, before voting, do we want to hear the election results?
Jesse, is that before or after? How does that work?
Let's do it before, that's fine. I think we normally do it at the very end, but it's, it is a long night. So give me a second. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry. For board chair, Jeffrey LeFrancois will retain the chair with a vote with 34 in favor.
Thank you.
Jessica Chait will retain first vice chair and with 35 in favor. Leslie Bogdan Murphy will retain the second vice chair with 36 in favor. Katie Stokes will retain her co-secretary position with 33 in favor. And Roberta Barnett will be our new co-secretary with 34 in favor.
All right.
Thanks, Jesse, and thanks to everybody for democracy.
Thank you, everyone.
So voting tonight, you have your vote sheet. Katie, I believe you're flying solo this evening. Is Blake here?
Blake's here.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
Blake.
He's there.
I'm sorry about that. So as is custom with the ULURP, you're going to call the name, then the individual announces their vote on the ULURP first, and then the vote on the remaining items. In addition, I want to clarify that I think there's going to be a couple of folks who are P and E on certain items. You need to state that separately as a part of your vote. And I think those are the technicals, right, Jesse?
I'm sorry, say again, Jeffrey?
Just in terms of other technical things to flag, like order, you're voting on number 13, and you have to specify on item 13 voting X.
Yep.
And then say the rest of your vote.
Yes.
Roberta.
I see questions.
Just to confirm, the assumption is also that 9 is sent back to committee. So it's 9 and 14 sent back to committee. We don't have to say anything. That's just what we should mark.
Yeah.
Correct.
We'll correct that. Don't worry about 9 and 14. Whatever you all write, we'll correct it on the back end. There's nothing to vote on.
And I assume Mr. Greenwald had the same question. So with that, I pass it over to Blake and Katie. And also thank Blake for his service and appreciate your year as secretary. So thank you.
Yay, Blake. Okay, are we ready? So Ted, you are first up as usual. See here. Okay, Roberta.
Yes on 13 and yes to the rest.
Thank you. Christine. Christine.
She's on mute.
Yes and yes.
Okay. Gwen. All right.
Sorry. Yes to all that are not already being disposed of back to committee and stuff.
And what about on 13, the ULURP?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, Leslie?
Thanks, Katie. Yes to all and yes to 13.
Thank you. Viren?
Yes to all, yes to 13.
Jessica?
Yes and yes.
Dale?
13 is 13, yes on 13. I'm going to vote no on 11 and yes to the rest.
Got it. Thank you. Aurora?
So on 10, I'm P&E because I'm part of HCC's board. Yes to 13 and yes to the rest.
Thank you. Yes. Marty?
I submitted the application, the form.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning part though.
Yes to 13, yes to the rest, and I submitted the document.
Great. All right. Thank you. Paul?
I see that Jesse Greenwald's hand has come back up. He looks confused. We might want to pause for a second, but I say yes on 13 and yes on the rest for my vote and submit it.
Okay. And Jesse?
Sorry, I was confused and I am confused. I thought 11 was going back to committee.
No, not formally back to committee. It will be formalized based on the discussion that we had, as everything was sort of welcomed as friendly and compromise.
I did not realize that. I mean, that's my fault for not realizing that and not fully understanding that. And it's not my turn to vote, but I probably will have to abstain on that because would be more comfortable saying the final language. Okay.
Okay. So, all right. So we just did Paul. And so now Tina, over to you.
I assume referring to the other Tina, right?
Yeah, you're right. I am. Sorry. And is she not here?
And that Tina's not here tonight, but Katie, if we can continue to pause, I want to take Viren's question, and I see concern in Jesse Bodine's face that because I wanted to address it also. Viren first, please.
Yeah, same issue that Jesse brought up. I thought this was 11 was going back to the committee for being redrafted, which is why I voted yes to that. But I would prefer to abstain. So I want to change the vote.
Okay.
Okay.
So
have you submitted the vote sheet, Viren?
Not yet. I have
okay,
not.
that's fine. Okay. Thank you.
So to clarify, the intention is that item 11 will be updated based on the discussion this evening with the co-chairs, myself and Jessica, who was involved with the drafting of the letter. And that will then go out. So that's what you're voting on with item 11. Sorry for the confusion. Katie, back to you.
All right. So I think I'm at Pete Diaz right now.
Yes to 13 and yes to the rest, and submitted.
Wendy?
I don't think Wendy's here.
Matt?
Yes to 13 and yes to the rest.
Thank you. Jesse?
I'm going to be yes to 13, abstain on 11, yes to the rest, and Jesse Bodine, I'm so sorry. I have to change my vote sheet that was already submitted. Sorry.
Time to submit it again. We'll...
All right, thanks.
Okay. Candace?
13, yes to the rest, and submitted.
Got it. David?
Yes to 13 and yes to the rest.
Great. Frank?
Yes to 13 and yes to the rest.
Josephine?
I saw her. She's not here.
Okay. Yadira?
Yes to 13 and yes to the rest.
Thank you. Gary?
Yes to 13 and yes to the rest. Thank you.
Yeah. Lowell?
Yes to 13. In abundance of caution, present not eligible on number 6, and yes to the rest.
Got it. And my amazing co-secretary, Blake.
Yes on 13, yes to the rest.
Thank you. As you record it. Bert.
Yes on 13, yes to the rest, and submitted.
Great. Chris. He was here. Chris? Oh,
There we go. You can hear
there
me
we
now.
go.
I need my vote sheet, but yes to 13 and yes to the rest.
Thank you. Betty.
Yes to 13 and yes to the rest.
Sarah. Is she here? Okay. Tina Nelson.
Yes to 13, PNE for 11, and yes to the rest.
Mike Noble.
Yes to 13, yes to the rest, and submitted.
Thank you. JD.
Yes to 13, yes to the rest.
Maria.
Yes and yes.
Lovely. Alan.
Thanks.
Oh no, Alan's not here. Brad.
Yes to 13 and yes to the rest. Thank you.
Okay. Joe.
Yes on 13, yes to the rest, P&E on 10.
Right. Okay. Sabrina.
Sabrina's not here today.
Oh, right. Okay. Dolores.
Yes on 13, yes on the rest.
Thank you. David.
Yes
Solnick.
on 13, yes to the rest.
Lovely. Me, yes on 13 and yes to the rest. Charles.
Yes on 13 and yes to the rest.
Okay. Kit, I believe, is not here. So Hector.
I didn't see Hector either.
Okay. Renal.
Yes on 13, no on 11, and yes to the rest.
Thank you. James.
Didn't see him all night.
And if James was here, he would make an Aaron Judge comment before his.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. All right.
Surprised you didn't, Leslie.
David Warren.
Yay on 13 and yay to the rest, and have a good holiday, everyone.
You too. Leslie Williams.
Leslie's not going to be here.
Oh, all right. Carl Wilson.
Carl's not going to be here.
Are people toying with me this evening? Okay, Alice, you're here.
Yes, yes to 13. I am P&E on 11 and P&E on 12, and then yes to the rest.
Great. All right. And then Jeffrey.
Yes on 13. Present not eligible on item 10. And yes to the rest.
All right. And then I think that's everybody, but is anybody here whose name I called, but they didn't say anything yet? Okay.
All righty. Well, thank you everybody for your time and discussion tonight. It's December. Enjoy the holidays, enjoy the festivity and the brightness in the city right now, and stay safe, and we'll see you all soon. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks,
Second.
everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.